Hey guys, tonight we're knee-deep in an alpine stream, fingers going numb and breath hanging in the air like frozen Wi-Fi signals. You're not here for a spa day. Those overpriced mud baths got nothing on 2,000 years of wool-washing wisdom. Real talk. You probably wouldn't last 10 minutes without whimpering for hand warmers. No shame, though even Roman fullers had apprentices pass out face first in sheep dip. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I want to know who's braving midnight blizzards or tropical heat waves to join me. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your boots sink into gravel, each stone rounded smooth by winters you'll never fully comprehend. Ice water licks your wrists, a shock so sharp it scrubs your thoughts clean. Here's the thing about alpine streams. They don't care about your dental plan or student loans. That clarity in the water, it's not just H2O purity, it's geological gatekeeping. Minerals dissolved over millennia dare you to add anything modern. You unroll the fleece, still clumped with last summer's arrogance. It smells of time crushed under hooves and sunbaked rocks, a scent no AI-generated candle could fake. Historians still argue whether Roman laundries imported alpine water for togas or just wrote poetic lies about it. Your fingertips turn scarlet as you plunge them in capillaries screaming like betrayed shareholders. Funny how connecting with tradition feels suspiciously like hypothermia. 12th century shepherds believed unwashed wool held love charms. If you buried a tuft under someone's doorstep, they'd adore you till the fleas left. Try that today, and you'll get a restraining order, and possibly an angry chihuahua. The fleece resists at first, grease clinging like bad decisions. At 2 a.m., but water always wins. Always. Your knees dig into the stream bed, each pebble a dimpled reminder of glaciers that ground mountains into submission. Archaeologists found Neolithic wool scraps in these valleys, stained blue with woad, but still intact. Imagine surviving 5,000 years just to end up under glass in a climate-controlled museum. Kinda tragic. Lanolin swirls away, golden whispers of sheep's labor. You wonder if the first human to wash wool got called a weirdo, or just had really persuasive mittens. The cold's nibbling your earlobes now, nature's way of asking if you're done yet. Not even close. A trout glides past, iridescent smugness intact. It knows something you don't. Maybe about the Iron Age chieftain they pulled from this stream, his cloak fibers still twisted tight, or maybe it's just judging your technique. Either way, no tips offered. You wring out a lock's, drops hitting the surface like tiny accusations. Every squeeze echoes medieval fullers stomping wool in piss vats. Yeah, they used urine as detergent. Romantic, right? Your arms burn. The fleece lightens, not quite innocence, but closer to forgiveness. Dusk stains the water pewter. Your breath steadies. Somewhere downstream, a bell clangs, goats heading home to barns that predate the steam engine. The wool's ready. You're not. But rituals don't wait for epiphanies. They demand motion. One final dip, a baptism even atheists respect. The current hums a lullaby older than currencies or cathedrals. Your hands ache beautifully, proof you've touched something real. Shadows stretch like time-lapse vines. Funny you came to cleanse wool, but the stream's doing surgery on your attention span. Wind riffles the pines. You've stopped shivering. That's when you feel it, the first true thread of connection. Not to ancestors or nature or whatever, just to your own stubborn, goosebumped flesh. Water drips. Wool breathes. Somewhere up the mountain, a bell answers. You cradle the unwashed fleece, its earthy musk warring with Alpine air. Tangled locks cling to your palms like stubborn children, each tuft a journal of sun-baked fields and storm-damp hollows. Peppercorn-sized soil clumps roll free. You pinch one between thumb and forefinger. Historians confirm medieval wool merchants paid extra for fleeces free of forge soot. This grit's rich iron red suggests volcanic slopes miles upstream. A burr nestles near the fleece's nape, its spines curled like a hedgehog's yawn. Your nail catches a strand of wild flax woven through it. Some bored sheeps snack during golden hour grazing. Experts think 12th century monks trained sheep to avoid toxic meadows by rubbing mint on their noses, though your current batch clearly ignored the memo. 3 burrs cluster where flank meets belly, their formation mirroring the Orion constellation. Coincidence? The wool seems to murmur, look closer. You unravel a sun-bleached section, its fibers springing apart with a sound like falling rice. Hidden in the coarseness, near the sheep's shoulder blade, 3 spiral patterns pressed deep. Historians still argue whether Celtic herders braided these as practical weight markers or prayers to forgotten wool gods. Your pinky traces the tightest coil. The grooves align perfectly with your fingerprint. A moth wing flutters loose, translucent as old parchment. It lands in the stream's margin, carrying traces of lanolin that'll make some trout unusually glossy tonight. You pocket a twisted grass stem from the fleece's underlayer. Its zigzag bend suggests weeks of wind from the eastern pass. Local legends claim 15th century shearers could predict droughts by how loudly wool squeaked during washing. The stream swirls around your wrists, its chill pulling you back from century-old gossip. That dark clump near the hindquarter isn't dirt, it's charcoal from a lightning-struck pine. The sheep wore this scar like a metal proof of surviving summer's caprice. You rinse it slowly, black water pooling, then dissolving like ink in sake. 3 drifts of silt settle on submerged rocks, recording where you've scrubbed hardest. A tuft slips free, drifting downstream toward where children net minnows. Their great-grandmothers used such strays to stuff dollhouse mattresses, lavender buds mixed in for sweeter dreams. You imagine some miniature noblewoman tossing on a bed of lanolin and petty grievances. The fleece's underside reveals its secret, a pale stripe where winter's first snow never melted. Your knuckle brushes something wiry, a single gray hair coarser than the rest. Aging you or some ancient breed lost to stud books. Museum tags in Prague credit Bohemian shepherds with breeding sheep that bleated in minor chords. Acclaim modern herders snort at overbitter ale. Light shifts, clouds mirroring the wool's undyed shades. You press the fleece underwater again. Its rebellion lasts exactly 7 seconds before surrendering. Lanolin rainbows bloom downstream, a chemical ballet even the strictest Cistercian dyers couldn't replicate. That knotted clump near the tail resists your touch. Its core holds pollen from the glacier lilies that bloom once every 7 springs. By dusk, you've mapped its topography: grassy plateaus, grease-dark valleys, burr archipelagos. The fleece drips secrets into the stream, each revelation lighter than the last. Your chilled fingers recognize what eyes can't see. Every kinked fiber hums with roots walked under different stars. Valley mothers once tucked raw wool into cradles, believing its unwashed whispers helped babies recognize their first words. You almost envy the spindle that'll twist these stories into something ordinary. The wooden paddle rests against your knee, its curve worn concave by 3 centuries of wet wool. Fingers trace initials carved near the handle: JW 1742, half drowned in algae stains. Historians note Alpine brushmakers added rosemary oil to prevent woodloss, though this one bears tooth marks from some long-dead terrier's misguided chew. You dip it sideways, water sluicing through its cracks like time-lapsed geography. That flat stone beside your left boot isn't accidental. Generations placed it precisely for knee padding. Its surface shines mirror smooth. You catch your warped reflection scowling back. 13th century inventories list stream stones as heritable property, more carefully logged than some children's births. The cold seeps through your trousers anyway, a blunt reminder that historical comfort was aspirational. Bristles kiss the wool first, boar hair softened by decades of lanolin baths. Tudor-era brushmakers often moonlighted as ale tasters, their calloused tongues detecting sapwood bitterness in improperly aged bristles. You sweep downward, the paddle's rhythm syncs with water's murmur. A splintered bristle pricks your thumb, some apprentice's botched job during Napoleon's march on Moscow. 3 bone combs dangle from a willow branch, their teeth filed smooth by fleece after fleece. Archaeologists found similar tools in Viking graves, laid beside warriors, as if guarding against Valkyrie split ends. The widest comb catches, hooked on a burr you missed. It releases with a pop, sending ripples toward a dipper bird judging your technique. Your palms recognize the tools before your eyes do, muscles mirroring great-grandsires who scrubbed rebellion from Jacobite wool. That notch in the paddle's edge, perfect for snapping icicles off frozen fleece come January. You press too hard, the ghost of every prior user hisses patience through creaking wood. Lanolin clouds the water. You spot shapes like medieval heraldry in the oily swirls. Experts think Byzantine wool washers used duck fat as a degreaser, though foliage records show no quacking flocks near their streams. The paddle trembles its handle, warmed where your grip overlaps, with a 1637 shepherd's nicotine stains. A twig beneath the stone betrays itself, crumbling into damp splinters when nudged. Your laugh sounds foreign here, too modern for these silt-heavy silences. 16th century guild rules banned laughter during commercial washing, believing jollity made wool vain and unabsorbent. Through your gloves, the tools hum, their vibrations older than Protestantism. The last comb's teeth click against a hidden pebble. No historians found why Alpine combs always had 23 tines. Local lore claims it matched the letters in a band, Saint's Prayer. But you're too busy untangling a snarl to care. Lanolin coats your wristwatch, turning the glass milky as a cataract. When you finally stand, the paddle floats downstream. Let it go, tomorrow's dawn will beach it on the same gravel bar as always. Tools outlive hands here, patient as the shale beneath your soles. Your footprints fill with water, each a tiny baptismal font for confused tadpoles. The combs sway, their shadows stitching your shadow to the bank's long memory. Moonlight slicks the stream's surface like quicksilver. Your breath hangs visible in air sharp enough to cut glass. Roman texts advised full moon scouring, claiming night air fixed wool's virtue better than dawn's fickle humidity. You question their laundry metaphysics as iced water soaks through both stockings. The submerged fleece glows spectral, a drowned aurora tangled around your wrists. 19th century shepherds swore moonlight repelled moths, ignoring that moths famously work the night shift. Wool stretches like muscle under your grip, each dunk bending light into liquid prisms. That flat rock from earlier now serves as a moon dial, its shadow inching across the bank like a silent critic. You ring clockwise. Medieval guild rules enforced this to align with celestial harmonies. Counterclockwise twists allegedly invited mildew demons, though nobody's found their union contract. A barn owl screeches. Its cry syncs with your scrubbing rhythm. Local legends claim night washers once communed with aurochs, mythical otters that lent their waterproof pelts as inspiration. Your numb fingers beg for supernatural intervention, or at least thermal gloves. Lanolin swirls form temporary constellations, Orion's belt mirrored in greasy ripples before dissolving. Archaeologists debate whether Pictish tribes used lanolin as rudimentary night vision ointment. You just want it off your cuticles. 3 vigorous sweeps dislodge a pine needle from 1997, the year this sweater's original sheep was born. Your elbow bumps the lantern, its flame gutters, but holds. 16th century regulations required iron lantern stands during night washing. Wooden ones kept rolling into the water and starting debates about fire hazard deities. The moon does better work anyway, etching everything in mercury and shadow. A trout brushes your ankle, its scales mimicking the comb's teeth marks on soaked wool. You recall Victorian anglers bribing washerfolk for lanolin, supposedly the best trout bait ever invented. The fish darts off unimpressed by your historically informed offerings. The owl swoops again, this time snatching a water vole 10 feet upstream. Its wings churn the air into chilled cream. You taste iron and altitude with each gasp. Historians still argue whether moon phases affect lanolin's viscosity. Tonight's waning crescent leaves it stubborn as dried glue. Twisting the fleece rewards you with an audible creak, frozen fibers protesting their spa treatment. 18th century children's rhymes warned that noisy wool foretold blizzards. Tonight's weather seems content to lurk in the valley. A knuckle cracks. The sound triggers chain reactions. In distant coyotes, you pause to stretch. The Vienna night washers' guild rebellion of 1683 flashes through your mind. They demanded premium pay for owl shift scouring, got disbanded after dunking a Habsburg duke's undergarments in protest. Frost feathers the wool's edge, time to resume before your knees fossilize. Fabric softens under moonlight's chemical-free bleach stains, lifting like shy ghosts. That persistent burr from the afternoon finally disintegrates. Its fragments swirl into a miniature comet tail downstream. Your grandmother's voice materializes. Cold water's honest work, though she'd never touched raw fleece in her air-conditioned life. The dipper bird returns bobs approvingly at your rinsed heap. Its ancestors likely critiqued Phoenician traders scrubbing wool for Minoan royalty. Avian critics are nothing if not consistent. You flick a droplet its way. It blinks away the insult with practiced ease. When the last lock surrenders its grit, the owl falls silent. Dawn's first blush taints the eastern peaks. Pink light licks your woolen offering. Tools wait on the bank, patient as ever. Your footprints freeze momentarily in mud, tiny fossils for tomorrow's tadpoles to dissect. Sunlight fractures the water's skin. Each ripple births tiny rainbows where lanolin meets air. Bavarian shepherds once carried tally sticks carved with runes, counting clean fleeces while walking these same stones. The stream's hum deepens as you wade deeper, its bass note vibrating through wool like a plucked cello string. A pebble catches your eye, its surface etched with concentric circles. Historians still argue whether Bronze Age herders used river stones as primitive wool-beating tools. This one's grooves suggest 4 millennia of impatient scrubbing. You pocket it. Your great-great-grandchildren can fight over its purpose during Thanksgiving 2123. Your submerged foot knocks against something smooth. A cow's jawbone wedged between rocks. 19th century Swiss herders hollowed these into whistles, mountain signals so shrill they'd make a bald eagle flinch. This specimen's teeth wear grooves from decades of wool-combing fingers. A multitasker before the term existed. Echoes of children's laughter bounce off the gorge. 1860 mill. Apprentices dunking scraps for practice. Their ghosts still leave woolly offerings tangled in willow roots. You untangle a lock someone's great-great-aunt might have carded. The water approves, tugging the fibers westward like breadcrumbs for salmon. That twisted pine upstream groans, its trunk bent double from decades of supporting washerwomen's backs. Local teens whisper it can predict blizzards, leaning further east when storms approach. You test this by leaning with it. Your spine cracks in solidarity. Wool ripples underwater like cursive script words only the current can translate. Experts think Phoenician traders buried fleece here to steep in Alpine vigor before selling it as Norse cloudwool. You doubt even Vikings fell for that marketing. But capitalism's been grifting since goats grew hair. A kingfisher dives. Its neon streak reminds you that nature invented highlighter pens first. Its beak clacks twice, the universal code for move along. Two-legged intruder. You flick water its way. 3 drops land on a rock shaped like Charlemagne's left molar. Coincidence or divine mockery? The stream's not telling. Cold numbs your toes into archaeological relics, preserved for future grad students to carbon date. 9th century washerwomen wore wooden clogs stuffed with moss. You've got Wellingtons and regret. The water swirls a leaf against your ankle, its edges nibbled into lace by philosophical caterpillars. Threads of sheep's wool snag on rusted nails, left by Depression-era hobos patching shoes between trains. Their ghosts probably resent your Moncler jacket, though to be fair, you're equally bad at hopping boxcars. A whiskey bottle glints beneath the surface, its 1942 tax stamp still legible between algae teeth. You pull a burr from the fleece. Its spines hold microsamples of soil from 6 meadows upstream. Agronomists could map the valley's pH levels using these hitchhikers, but they're busy arguing about drone fertilizer instead. The burr sails toward the far bank, a snack for mice building tiny yurts. Shadows stretch, their outlines blur into inkblot tests on the stream's parchment surface. That stain looks like Napoleon's hat, the one he lost crossing the Alps to sell subpar wool uniforms. The water gurgles sarcastically, mocking emperors, and your pareidolia with equal vigor. Your numb fingers discover a sheep's milk tooth lodged in the fleece. Calcified childhood surrendered to the current. 17th century dairymaids wore them as love charms, guaranteeing proposals within 7 moons. You pocket it anyway. The Tinder algorithms aren't cutting it these days. The dipper bird reappears, this time dunking a mayfly nymph like a sadistic bartender. Its ancestors witnessed Attila's troops scrubbing horse blankets here. History's first laundromat review was probably etched in Hun. You toss it a lint ball. It rejects your tribute, with a head flick of imperial disdain. Dusk seeps into the gorge. The water darkens to obsidian flecked with silver fireflies. Last week's storm left keloid scars on the banks, clay and shale rearranged into nature's graffiti. You trace a spiral pattern, the same symbol Celtic weavers sewed into cloaks to confuse evil spirits. Modern ones just use QR codes. When the final fleck of debris spins downstream, your shadow stands alone on the rocks. The stream hums 2 notes lower, a lullaby for wool that's finally earned its sleep. Golden oil blooms across your palms, nature's Vaseline seeping from soaked fleece. 17th century, Austrian tanners slathered this gunk on boots. Hydration hack for leather as cracked as their love lives. Your grip slips, lanolin slickness, mocking the stream's icy insistence. A mayfly kamikaze dives into the sheen, wings stuck fast like prehistoric amber. Sunlight turns the mess into liquid topaz. You flick droplets at a rock shaped like Galileo's lost telescope. Old world shepherds swore lanolin cured baldness. Their balding descendants now sell it as artisanal hair food for €19 a jar. The lie floats downstream. You watch it vanish behind a minnow's disapproving tail. Knuckles brush submerged wool. Fibers ripple like harp strings under expert hands. Cleopatra's perfumers whipped lanolin into body creams. Legend claims her bath milk contained quarts of the stuff. You wrinkle your nose. Royal spa days probably smelled like a wet sheep convention. The fleece surrenders another gush of grease. Your hands glisten like fast food onion rings. Historians still argue whether lanolin preserved Viking sails outlasted modern synthetics, though nobody's brave enough to recreate Bjarni Herjolfsson's Atlantic crossing in a woolen boat. The stream disagrees. Its eddies polish your oily palms to medieval night gauntlet sheen. A bubble bursts on the surface. Its pop echoes a Tudor-era lullaby. 16th century English wet nurses rubbed lanolin on infants' gums, teething remedy or creative neglect. Your teeth ache in sympathy, the victim of a 3 chewy mint breakfast. Peeled off oil swirls create Rorschach blobs that once definitely a sheep mooning Louis XIV. Romanian folklore claims night-washed lanolin steals souls. Your reflection winks as rainbows distort your face into carnival mirror horror. You dare the water to try. It responds by sluicing grease into your left boot. Sudden warmth startles your numb feet, lanolin's insulation kicking in despite the glacial flow. World War, imetics packed wounds with raw wool fat, last-ditch infection barrier when bullets outnumbered bandages. The memory clings like the oil itself, slippery and persistent. Fleece softens beneath your touch, its wiry defiance melting into cloud-down obedience. Georgian-era con artists sold lanolin elixir as a truth serum. Court records show 3 nobles confessed to bad wigs during interrogation. You whisper fake secrets to the wool. It judders in the current. An honest critic, globs of grease spin westward, miniature Galapagos islands adrift in the current. Dutch painters ground lanolin into oil pigments, their masterpiece yellows browned faster than craisins in a toaster. You paint a sunbeam streak on wet stone. It fades before lifting your finger. A water strider skates across the oily film, its legs daintier than Marie Antoinette's unused pastry tongs. The 1897 Sears catalog advertised lanolin-coated condoms, rubber's romantic upgrade for sensitive gentlemen. You snort. The stream muffles your laugh with a well-timed wave. Twilight gilds the remaining grease, world's oldest moisturizer, now doubling as nature's glitter. Mongolian herders still waterproof yurts with rendered sheep fat. Your palms could weather a sandstorm now. The wool floats lighter, its drowned rat scruff replaced by otter pelt sleekness. Crisp stars pierce the oil-smeared water, celestial graffiti on a lanolin canvas. Archaeologists found lanolin-caked combs in Visigoth graves, hair care being eternal. Even during the apocalypse, you rake fingers through the fleece. Strands flow like liquid mercury through your grip. Moonrise turns the bank into an oily disco, every ripple flinging disco ball light. Victorian street urchins sold fairy grease in oyster shells, lanolin mixed with stolen candle wax. You sketch a smiley face in the shimmer. It melts into Picasso-esque despair. One stubborn grease clump bobs downstream, last defender of the wool's feral past. Salem's worst winter saw women smear lanolin on window panes to seal out devil drafts. Your breath fogs the air. No demons tonight. Just a cold butt and phoenix-level regeneration of elbow skin. The stream finally claims the last oil slick, its surface purged to mountain-cold clarity. Wool lies docile in your hands, purged of grit, but never of story. Somewhere downstream, a trout coughs up rainbows. Dawn gnaws your knuckles raw, frost-crusting wool into a lace-edged fossil. Each exhale hangs like ghost laundry, your breath clouds merging with fleece steam in the frigid air. Medieval's timed first frost washes as nature's bleach. You're just trying not to inhale your own snotsicle. Ice glazes the wool's surface, 1,000 shattered constellations crackling under tentative fingers. Bavarian kids once licked these frozen tufts for luck. Pre-germ theory daredevils chasing sweetgrass rumors in the frost. Your tongue stays put, heroism's overrated at 7 a.m. with a half-frozen bandana. Thawing wool sticks to stone. The sickening peel of Velcro plus glue traps. 16th century Milanese weavers dunked frostbitten fingers in sheep urine warm-up technique. You won't Google later. The stream mocks your hesitation, its dark chuckle swirling beneath morning's thin ice skin. Historians still bicker whether frost-washed wool repelled moths or just made their glittery corpses easier to spot. You pluck an ice chip. Its meltwater trickle feels like betrayal down your wrist. 3 crows heckle from a pine avian critics, rating your thawing technique. Sunrise bleeds across the ice pink light, fracturing into disco ball glitter on wool peaks. Your numb thumb discovers a frozen burr, last summer's hitchhiker preserved, like Jurassic mosquito DNA. Steam rises as the fleece surrenders, frost retreating into the stream's hungrier currents. Frostbite nips your earlobe vengeance for last night's "I don't need a hat" bravado. Georgian wigmakers soaked wig bases in frost melt stiffness prevention, or punishment for wearing powdered monstrosities. The memory thaws with your toes, both equally uncomfortable. A ice chunk bobs downstream, its edges softened into alien spacecraft curves. Celtic dyers claimed frost-bleached wool absorbed colors deeper, though their recipes involved more mead drinking than chemistry. You test the theory by squinting at grayish tufts. Nope, still looks like damp, drier lint. Skin warms where lanolin lingers, yesterday's grease, now playing defense against cracked cuticles. Frost-etched patterns mimic ferns and spiderwebs, nature's temporary tattoos shrinking under your scrutiny. That one's definitely a map to buried shepherd gold if you ignore the pigeon footprint. Knees protest the cobblestone hardness. Medieval penitents had softer Sunday rituals. Your thermos coughs tepid sage tea, breakfast of would-be wool-washing champions. The fleece squelches as ice releases it, soundtrack of wet socks and stubborn hope. Shadows shrink as sunlight asserts dominance. Frost becomes reluctant puddles around your boots. Peruvian lightning witches spun frost wool into storm-summoning cords, according to some anthropologists' fever dream thesis. You weave a pinky-sized braid, thunder stays silent, but your nose stops running. Frozen fibers stab your palms, last stand of winter's bitter crystal army. Steam carries phantom wood smoke scents, memory, or neighbor's breakfast fire colonizing the valley. Either way, it beats sniffing glacial runoff for entertainment. Dew emulsifies the remaining frost. Wool darkens like storm clouds, birthing miniature chalk. Your reflection wobbles in meltwater, mourning stubble angrier than a dunked cat. Renaissance Flemish painters rendered frost-burnished wool with ground bone white. Their models probably earned every brushstroke. Ice surrenders its last crunch texture, shifting from glass shards to soggy cornflakes. Fleece now flops like a soaked wedding dress, train dragging through pebbled aisle. You wring it with renewed purpose. Water arcs catch sunlight in fleeting prism bridges. Final ice clings to wool's heart, tiny glacier, refusing climate change realities. Your breath steadies, visible puffs syncing with the stream's caffeine jitter rhythm. Somewhere uphill, a ewe sneezes, nature's review of your overnight preservation efforts. A laugh slices through the sheep's snort, high and bright, like a dropped penny ringing on slate. You turn, berry-stained fingers already reaching into your reed basket. The kids' wool socks sag with stream water, every step squelching like a bog monster's mating call. Medieval guild records show 7-year-olds carding wool, child labor laws being 8 centuries too early. You demonstrate the ringing twist, palms up, elbows angled like heron wings. Their first attempt shreds the fleece, a crime against textile history they'll outgrow by lunch. Alpine lore claims wet socks strung by kids ward off river hags, better than chicken wire for trapping wayward spirits. You help untangle their knotted mess, the ghost of your own clumsy 10-year-old hands laughing through your wrist bones. Historians still argue whether those tiny hands were economic necessity or just keeping urchins from burning haylofts. The kid finds a snail shell in the fleece currency for whatever black market beetle deals third graders run these days, their brow furrows mimicking your scrunch face, copied from some forgotten ancestors, struggle with damp sheep hair. You point to the Lanolin's oily sheen nature's conditioner. They'll later swipe for avant-garde hairstyling behind the barn. Steam rises where their breath meets yours, 2 generations fogging up the morning in tandem. A dropped fleece plops into the shallows. The stream's been baptizing wool longer than your bloodline's bones have chilled here. The kid sneaks a pebble into their pocket future ammunition or imagined dragon egg. You pretend not to notice, stealing stones from waters older than original sin. Voices echo off the gorge, yesterday's laughter trapped in limestone and the bounce of water. They demand the secret to perfect ringing, fair trade for their illicit maple candy stash. You feign mystical signs. Pinky swears beat Hogwarts when teaching kids ancient chores. Their next attempt holds fingers knit into the muscle memory of 20 dead great aunts. Sunlight warms the crown of their head, same patch your grandfather swore housed ancestral common sense. Fleece drips cleaner now, threads waking from generations of lanolin and field muck naps. An eddy swirls their reflection, ripples blending your jawline with their chipmunk cheeks. The kid spots your calluses, demanding inspection like some dermatological trophy case. You spin tales of war against burr monsters, truths overrated when training wool-washing foot soldiers. Their palm presses yours, ridged skin bridges stretching across 6 centuries of cold water. Meltwater numbs their fingertips. They complain using words your great-grandmother would have beaten out of them. You barter warmth for labor. Next basket's fleece earns the right to thaw by the fire. They work with renewed drama. Future Instagram influencers could take notes on this pout. A kingfisher dives upstream, its teal streak mirroring the kid's neon hairclip dropped yesterday. You let them claim it's a magic sign. Work goes faster when children believe in feathered foremen. Their final ring trickles clear, no more mud soup dripping into the stream. You nod approval, a language older than the Latin names for these alpine weeds. They beam like they've tamed the river itself, ignoring the 10 twisted knots now lurking in the wool's underbelly. Shadows stretch, lessons end, where the stream bends toward home's smoking chimney. They gallop off with a stolen comb, missionaries spreading the gospel of fiber arts to any listening goats. You rinse their abandoned sock, its polka dots clashing with the stream's tasteful stone palette. somewhere downstream, a mother sighs, matching your smile as she finds pebbles in tomorrow's laundry. Moss squishes between your toes as you approach the stone basin, centuries of algae turning each step into a biohazard slip and slide. The wool sinks into its limestone cradle, clouds of dirt swirling like cream in coffee. You hum the first line of Pater Noster Lanolin, that old washers hymn archaeologists found scratched on a Roman bathhouse wall. Roman fullones used donkey urine for whitening. Your stream's musk beats fermented pea any Sunday. Sediment drifts downward, specks of sheep dung and meadow pollen settling into a mosaic only gnats appreciate. Your knife nicks a soapwort root, its froth blooming faster than gossip in a convent. Locals swear these basins remember every fleece washed here echoes in tomorrow's sediment layers. You kneel where twin grooves mark generations of knees, a DIY indent smoother than any cathedral kneeler. Cold seeps through patched pants, proof that pious posture didn't include inventing foam pads. Historians still argue whether medieval launderers preferred hymns or curse words during lanolin season. You warble the verse about mercy on our shriveled hands, a heretical alto note scaring off sparrows. The wool drinks stillness now, fibers unclenching after days of tug-of-war with the current. A beetle rose through the basin, its journey across your submerged fleece rivaling Homer's Odysseys. You resist swatting it. Even Noah let critters hitch rides on arc-bound materials. Sun bakes the moss into green leather, scent wafting up like overcooked spinach at a hippie commune. 3 heartbeats pass between each droplet falling from your elbow, nature's metronome for patience. Some ancestor chiseled these rocks to trap silence. Modernity's noise can't penetrate waterlogged wool's atmospheric defenses. Your pinky traces furrows in the stone same path. A Saxon widow's finger followed during the Black Death. That pearly softness the elders promised arrives stealthily, like frost sneaking across a windowsill. You poke the fleece, rebounding fibers mock your calluses with their newfound silkiness. A 1,372 tax record lists this basin as St. Agnes Washpot, patron saint of chilblains and mislaid socks. Your ballad hits a high C, a screech sending dragonflies into evasive maneuvers. 9 pebbles line the basin's rim, your grandmother's trick for counting rinses without losing track. Each stone represents a vice squashed. Pride sinks first. Sloth always floats to the top. Twilight stains the water indigo. Wool absorbs the color, then spits it back out. You imagine Viking raiders pausing here, scrubbing blood-stained tunics before Sunday Mass and pillaging. The basin doesn't judge, swirling away battlefield grit and baby spit up with equal indifference. Frog spawn glistens on submerged rocks, next week's problem disguised as nature's glitter. You retie your hair with soaked flax, third attempt to outsmart gravity's relentless prank. Lullabies rise unbidden, the same ones mumbled through fever dreams and barnyard births. Wool whispers, when truly clean, a hushed vibration your molars feel before your ears catch it. You press a lock to your cheek. Confirmation, bias, never felt so velvety. Downstream kids shriek, their pebble-skipping contests, echoing the Industrial Revolution's earliest water wheel prototypes. The basin exhales mist as night cools its stone belly. Your breath sinks to its ancient wheeze. Shadows merge wool, water, and weary fingers into one amorphous blot, proof that twilight's the great unifier. You rise stiffly, knees popping a protest older than the Gregorian calendar. Clean bundles sag in your arms. The weight of transformed things always feels lighter. Stars begin their prickly vigil. The basin reflects them, now, where wool once floated. A lone firefly blinks Morse code against the rocks. Decoding it would probably just be meh. Your footprints ooze back into the moss. Tomorrow's washer won't know you hovered here. Tomorrow's washer might be your ghost, still scrubbing imaginary stains in the afterlife's spin cycle. The hymn's last note dissolves, replaced by the stream's endless gossip about everyone who's ever bent to its will. Twilight bleeds gold across the water, your signal to begin the thrice-fold rinse. You dunk the wool sideways, limbs mimicking the ritual's strict geometry, passed from washer to washer. Historians still argue whether medieval launderers truly believed 3 dips banished demons, or just stubborn grass stains. Your first plunge stirs up silt, flecks of mica, glittering like disco sprinkles in a nun's bathhouse. Lanolin surrenders its grip, fibers finally releasing summer's grime into the current. A 14th century guild manual warned against skimping rinses, claiming once for peasants, thrice for saints. Your numb fingers count each lift and twist, muscles protesting like unpaid Renaissance interns. Second immersion. The water runs clearer now, the wool's amber glow intensifying as shadows stretch. Locals whisper that twilight rinses trap starlight in the fibers, a myth your blisters resent, but your spine honors. Third dip, the fleece becomes liquid sunlight, weighted with stream secrets. You press it underwater, palms reading textures, like a blind scholar deciphering Braille psalms. Bubbles rise as wool exhales, centuries of trapped meadow air escaping through your fingers. Moonflower vines unfurl beside the bank, their clockwork blooming, synced to your final squeeze. Historians documented Tudor laundresses using dawn dew for showpiece linens. Your Alpine stream needs no celestial garnish. Dripping bundles sway as you hoist them, each twist of water writing its own epitaph in the shallows. A bullfrog chitters from the pines, its call echoing the exact pitch of your lower back's complaint. You knot the wool into reed baskets, weaving patterns that mirror Lisbon's 16th century rope-walk guild insignia. Cold air stings your forearms, feeling oddly sacred, like genuflecting in a freezer aisle. Fireflies emerge, their Morse code flickers, translating to dry me before midnight, or else. You smirk, knowing full well moths staged a coup in last season's wool stores. The wool's scent merges with pine resin, an aroma that would make Benedictine monks trade their wine cellars. Plucking burrs from your sleeve, you notice one shaped like Charlemagne's misshapen left pinky, some joker carver probably aimed for a pinecone. History's accidents outshining intent again. Stars prick the darkening sky, their light glazing wool with an almost metallic sheen. Your grandmother's voice loops through memory, clean wool hums, dirty wool mumbles. Tonight's batch vibrates like a beehive, a chorus. Even the stream pauses to acknowledge. You press an ear to the basket, half expecting to hear Gregorian chants from the monastery upstream. Twilight's last gasp stains the horizon. Your shadow stretches thin as patience in a plague year. 3 rinses mean 3 dreams tonight. Local superstition warns of flooded sleep. If you skip one, you'll risk it, preferring waterlogged nightmares to calloused hands pruning further. The wool lies docile now, purged of everything but Alpine winds and the memory of Lanolin. Historians still debate whether Viking sailmakers learned rinsing tricks from Scottish woolwives. You side-eye the stream, keeper of answers that erode faster than sandstone. Moonlight christens the fleece, its strands fluorescing like papal vestments in a heretic's parable. Tomorrow's spinning looms demand perfection. Tonight's work settles for being slightly less mortal. You wipe mist from your cheeks, the stream's cheeky imitation of human sweat. Baskets balanced on hips, you ascend the path as night swallows the water's gilded skin. Firefly light winks out their shift, ending the moment your souls leave the bank. Behind you, the stream resumes its gossip about how softness always outlasts stone. Moon-pale wool glows in its reed cradle ready for its bitter baptism. You crush juniper berries between stones, their sharp scent pricking your nose like a disapproving ant. Medieval apothecaries stuffed herbs in burial shrouds to mask decay. Your Alpine sachets serve livelier purposes. Cloth bags sag with sage and yarrow, their poky leaves protesting through the weave. You weight each sack with a river-smoothed stone, their descent through water mimics falconers' hoods slipping over keen eyes. Local lore claims 16th century Germanic monks grew carnivorous plants in their washing pools. Imagine Venus flytraps snapping at wool mites. Your submerged herbs swirl, their tannins leaching into fiber like gossip through convent walls. Cold numbs your wrists as you knot the sachets, fingers fumbling like a novice scribe's first quill cuts. Historians still debate whether Tudor herb sachets aimed to scent linens or repel bedchamber lice. You smirk, suspecting both, plus a third reason involving adulterous courtiers and laundry day rendezvous. Juniper oil slicks the water's skin, a gleaming patina that repels dusk's first mosquitoes. The stream licks at your herbal offerings, its tongue curling around forgotten Alpine secrets. A nighthawk cries overhead, its screech mirroring the exact pitch of cloth fibers tightening in the brew. 3 hours, they say, the time needed for mountain wisdom to penetrate greasy strands. You'd argue it takes 7, one for each sister who first stewarded this bend in the stream. Your sleeves darken with water up to the elbows, an accidental dye job that'll outlast next week's wash. Moonlight fractures through sage leaves, projecting ghostly herbariums onto the opposite bank. You hum a low note, the same pitch Salzburg weavers used to test yarn tension through the 1700s. Wool drinks the bitter tea, its fibers puckering like lips at a lemon peel's kiss. Distant cowbells clank. Their tinny chorus reminds you it's 8 bells in some wool-less world. Your knees protest the rocky perch, reminding you to bribe the village carpenter for a kneeler next season. The sachets sway, their dance imitating hanged men turning in a soft Alpine breeze. A vole noses the soaked herbs, then retreats, whiskers twitching at nature's own moth deterrent. You finger the welt rising on your neck, proof of either allergic reaction or a vengeful flytrap's ghost. Wool's musk fades by degrees, replaced by sharp green notes that sting the nostrils. Bats skitter across the water's surface, their shadows writing temporary patents for aerial wool inspections. One sack snags on submerged roots. You yank it free with a pop that startles the owls. Historians documented Egyptian embalmers using similar herb blends, though their linens wrapped corpses instead of future cardigans. Dawn threatens, pale fingers creeping over peaks to shame your all-night vigil. You pluck a soggy sage leaf. It dissolves between your fingers like communion wafers in a skeptic's mouth. Tradition demands you chew one. Bitterness floods your tongue like ink from a shattered pen. The wool exhales its final sour breath, Alpine purity etched into every strand. You haul up the sachets, their waterlogged forms drooping like disappointed padres. Skeptics claim fresh snowmelt cleanses better than any herb, but they've never smelled a bear's den post-hibernation. First light reveals wool's transformation. Its strands now smell like crushed hopes and glacier melt. Your numb legs buckle upon standing, blood rushing back in a crescendo of pins and needles. You shake out the herb sacks. Their spent contents float downstream toward some lesser launderer's domain. The stream folds around your ankles once more, a final chuckle before releasing you to daylight. Sodden fleece drags at your arms like a drunk noble's unwanted advances, all wet insistence and dead weight. Each squeeze sends silver ropes cascading back to the stream, 15 precise drops per compression, though no one agrees why that number matters. 17th century Flemish washers swore by wooden screw presses, but you prefer the honesty of aching biceps and trembling wrists. Your great-grandmother's ghost chuckles from the banks. She'd wrung 3 generations' wool before arthritis stole her grip. Legend says fullers in ancient Rome used fermented urine to degrease cloth. You'll stick with mountain runoff and spite. The fleece tenses as you lift, a waterlogged sigh escaping fibers, trained through 8 seasonal soakings. Pale strands cling to your forearms, makeshift fur sleeves that'll take 3 scrubbings to remove. Appalachian spinners once buried raw wool under crossroads at midnight, claiming moonlight cured lanolin better than any stream. Your knees grind against shale, today's penance for yesterday's shortcut across the buttercup field. Historians still argue whether medieval mordant recipes included crushed beetles for color fastness, or just morbid whimsy. You favor the beetle theory. It explains that persistent itch behind your ears. Water sluices through the wool's belly, its heartbeat slowing as gravity claims the final dregs. A fat droplet hangs from your elbow, quivering like a trapeze artist before plunging onto a fern. You count 7 similar casualties before admitting that fleece can't get drier than the stream allows. Some wiseacre carved a sundial into the North Bank's boulder, its shadow now creeping toward the kneel and weep hour mark. Memories surface of last winter's mishap, the frozen fleece that tore like parchment when squeezed too hard. Modern washing machines spin at 1,800 revolutions per minute. Your own technique maxes out at 2 deliberate twists. Twilight gilds the water's skin as you hoist the last hank, its silhouette dripping a temporary leaning tower of Pisa. The streamfloor pebbles roll beneath your boots, nature's own foot massage for the price of constant wobbling. An 1897 textile manual prescribed sips of barley beer during prolonged wringing to maintain the washer's spirit and the wool's. Your flask holds cold mint tea, the closest you'll get to temperance and traction. Frogs launch kamikaze dives through your runoff, their splashes applauding each successful squeeze. You mimic the iron laundresses of Versailles, those women who supposedly twisted noble small clothes with revolutionary fervor. Fleece meets reed basket with a moist thud, the sound of a giant's heart hitting a mattress. Blood seeps from a split knuckle-free advertisement that you've actually worked today. Bavarian folklore warns that pale wool washed after dusk attracts widows' ghosts. Never mind, it's barely past noon. You blot the cut on your apron, now decorated with abstract art in iron oxide red. The final hank glistens like a drowned bride's hair, heavy with promises it can't possibly keep. You arch backward, vertebrae popping in a staccato remix of childhood piano lessons. Across the valley, smoke plumes mark kitchens where sensible people bake bread instead of wrestling wet livestock coats. Mist rises as the last drops fall, each echoing like a tiny requiem in the rock pools. Your reflection wavers in the shallows, a waterlogged stranger wearing your face and a crown of tangled wool. Tomorrow's blisters are already throwing a preemptive party across your palms. RSVPs etched in lactic acid, a kingfisher streaks past, its turquoise flash mocking the dull wool grays you've worshipped for hours. You count 14 baskets stacked and weeping, their contents destined to become someone's rustic chic market scarf. The stream licks salt from your skin, an imperfect transaction, but the only one available. Thunderhead clouds muscle over the ridge like drunk bouncers, their bellies full of threats and misplaced ambition. You plunge the next fleece deeper, churned waters froth, scouring last traces of lanolin from the fibers. Historians still argue whether Renaissance dyers added ground sapphires to vats for celestial blue hues, or just crushed glass. Your team cheap imposters. Nature's palette needs no gemstones when lightning keeps setting the valley on strobe. Rain hits like a cattle stampede, each drop kicking up miniature craters in the stream's surface. Your great uncle's voice crackles through memory, that yarn about Mongol horsemen using unwashed wool as saddle padding for long rides. Now you understand. Nothing bonds rider and horse like shared stink and scratchy thighs. Currents claw at submerged fleece, their violence dislodging burrs even your scrubbing couldn't reach. A dead leaf clings to your sleeve, its veins pulsing with runoff like some Saugury map of the storm. Edwardian laundry manuals advised whispering compliments to linens during wringing. A gentle word preserves the fiber's pride. You snort, these wool clumps get explicitives, not endearments. Lightning forks the sky, nature's own agitator cycle, churning the water to frothy soup. Your boots slurp against clay, each step threatening to send you sliding into tomorrow's rheumatism. 13 baskets of semi-clean will glower from the bank, judges, at a wet dog show. 17th century Hessian mercenaries lined their boots with raw fleece for winter marches, a fact that almost impress you, if not for the blisters. Hailstones pelt the shallows, icicle teeth gnawing the stream into a boiling silver mass. You grab a fleece by its sopping horns, wrestling it like a greased pig at a county fair. Some Wisconsin cheesemaker probably trademarked storm-washed wool TM already, but you'll settle for free exfoliation and existential dread. The water's brown now, all topsoil and shattered oak leaves swirling toward the next valley. Fingers prune into ancient roots, gnarled tools perfect for combing clots of debris from tangled locks. A 1904 typhoon washed 300 silk kimonos into Tokyo. Bay textile historians still mourn them as water ghosts. Your own losses, just a hat and yesterday's dignity. Thunder vibrates your molars, the world rinsed clean and filthy at once. Rain sluices through your collar, a chilly baptism for the unrepentant. You spot a salamander clinging to the fleece, its speckled belly pressed against the wool like a panic button. Ottoman rug cleaners timed their work to thunderstorms, believing Allah's fury scoured deeper than human hands. The amphibian abandons ship as you lift the load, disappearing into foam with a tail flick of disapproval. Lightning flash freezes the scene, your reflection caught mid-scowl like a daguerreotype of domestic wrath. 300 paces upstream, the old footbridge groans under runoff's assault. 19th century mill Workers tied red ribbons to fulling hammers during storms, a charm against lightning strikes. Your protection: wool-induced deafness and a strong disinterest in martyrdom. The basket line retreats, hauled further upslope as the stream gnaws at the bank's edges. Your apron strings come undone, sodden fabric flapping like the sad flags of a surrendered nation. A 1930s Czech study proposed vibrating wool in stormwater to replicate Neolithic washing conditions. Peer review called it enthusiastic pseudoscience. The fleeces undulate on their own now, possessed by currents even the angriest washer couldn't muster. Shivering sets in part cold, part thrill, as the storm rewrites the day's rules. You count 9 heartbeats between thunderclaps, nature's metronome urging haste before the next deluge. Desert nomads layered wool under their tents during sandstorms, filtering grit through 1,000 tight curls. Your version's simpler, just a valley girl playing chicken with the weather gods. Dusk arrives early under bruised skies, the wool's gray brightening to pearl in weird stormlight. Last squeeze, last commitment to the charade. Your lungs burn with each breath, half mountain air, half liquid panic. A kingfisher rockets past, protesting your invasion of its chaos. You raise the final fleece like some drenched Olympian torch, victory salted with the certainty you'll be doing this again at dawn. Dawn bleeds through storm-racked clouds. The marmot's silhouette sharpens against lichen-crusted boulders like a furry sentinel. Its paws clutch a sprig of wild thyme, either breakfast or a tiny scepter of authority. You straighten, shoulders protesting, as those black eyes dissect your ringing technique. Minoan textile workers kept sacred martens near looms, believing their sharp claws could snag imperfect threads. This overseer's less helpful unless judging counts as labor. The fleece slips your grip, faltering as runoff numbs fingertips. A chittering scold snaps from the rocks, the marmot's tail flicking like a metronome set to disappointed. 20 heartbeats pass before it resumes chewing. Cold seeps through your knees, ancient river stones preserving memories of glaciers, better left nameless. You adjust the wool's twist, pink dawn light revealing 3 embedded pine needles, even the storm mist. Historians still argue whether Inca Llama tenders used rodent warnings to predict rainfall or just enjoyed their company. This one's no meteorologist, its gaze fixated on your left bootlace like a vengeful cobra. Your great aunt swore marmots held ancestors' spirits during washing months, their barks carrying advice if you listened between the wind. All you hear is digestive gurgling and last night's hail melting. Sunlight hits the water, transforming the stream into a liquid mirror. The marmot's reflection wavers beside yours, its whiskers twitching at a floaty bit of dandelion fluff. Ottoman yarn spinners allegedly trained squirrels to untangle knots, a fact you'd find cuter if this bureaucrat wasn't auditing your wrist angles. You dunk the fleece harder, splashing droplets that make the critic retreat to higher ground. Two crows alight downstream, their squawks echoing the marmot's earlier critique. 16th century, Flemish weavers paid beggars to shout insults, believing humiliation tightened stitch work. You mutter a rug merchant's proverb about nosy rodents and soup pots, words saltier than the stream's mineral tang. The marmot sneezes, a derisive that stirs the time's sprig from its claws. Colors deepen as the sun climbs. Lichen flares electric green across the boulder. Your shadow stretches west, forming a misshapen giant that herds the marmot's smaller silhouette. Swiss folklore claims these creatures guard hidden wool caves where unfinished yarn grows like vines. You'll settle for this spectator's departure, preferably before it develops a clipboard. The fleece finally drips clear, each droplet sparkling as it rejoins the stream. A grasshopper lands on the marmot's head, briefly transforming it into a bewildered crown bearer. Manon martins never dealt with this crap. You snort, startling both insect and overseer into a synchronized hop. Warmth returns to your hands, blood flow, battling residual numbness from hours of icy water. The marmot scratches its ear with surgical precision, a performance of casual mockery perfected over generations. You press the squeezed wool to your cheek, testing for dampness, and accidentally inhaling a pine-scented noseful of regrets. Clouds regroup overhead, bruised purples promising afternoon vengeance. The marmot vanishes into a crevice, its exit marked by a final chirp that could mean adequate work or never return. You count 17 breaths before a distant barking chorus answers, the Alpine jury debating your fate without witness. First light stains the wool pink, a fleeting dye that fades by breakfast. You blink at the alpenglow clinging to dripping fleece, a color no vat could replicate. Medieval Flemish weavers timed final rinses to sunrise, believing dawn's red hues fixed dyes. Their linen guilds would have wept seeing this transitory blush, nature's joke on human permanence. Your knuckles scrape moss while reaching for the reeds, their overnight frost melting into dew-that prisms through wool. A grass snake slithers across submerged cloth, its scales leaving temporary partings in the fibers. An obscure Alpine cult once worshipped wool-gathering hour, claiming unspun fleece, absorbed divine messages at dawn. You suspect their prophets just liked how cold kept the gnats away. The pink deepens, as if the mountains bled into your work. Historians still argue whether Renaissance dyers intentionally exploited this chromatic fluke or dismissed it as peasant superstition. You'll take either truth if it means watching amber-tinted water curl around your wrists. 3 mergansers paddle past, their feathers mimicking the wool's stolen blush. Someone should tell them pink's not a practical color for duck camouflage. Wind stirs the pine's needles, showering the stream like nature's last-ditch confetti. You ring clockwise today, counteracting yesterday's twist to keep fibers from remembering their grime. 18th century mill overseer's band left-handed washing, fearing reversed currents, angered water sprites. Your southpaw aunt scoffed at that. Her tapestries still hang in Bern's Textile Museum. Sunlight hits the wool's crest, translucent strands glowing like stained glass held to a match. You freeze mid-press, aware this precise shade of coral exists for 7 breaths. By the time you inhale again, it's already fading to butter yellow. A trout breaches upstream, its splash scattering the illusion into 1,000 ripples. Your back protests as you straighten, vertebrae popping like a misfiring musket salute. The fleece surrenders its last pink tinge, returning to the off-white of weathered bone. Swiss cheesemakers once dyed rinds with dawn-washed wool runoff, claiming it added Alpine zest. Their customers called it mold and sued. A raven croaks overhead, black wings slicing the sunrise into manageable portions. You drape wool over birch branches, each movement extending the fiber's baptism. Cold numbs your throat when swallowing, a reminder to sip the mint tea cooling on the flat rock. It tastes like toothpaste and poor decisions. Shadows shorten, the blush now lingering only in the wool's densest knots. You press an earlobe to the dripping mass, half expecting to hear yesterday's storm still raging inside. Navajo weavers whispered prayers into damp yarn, their breath binding stories to thread. All you hear is your own pulse thudding in time with the current. 2 hikers materialize downstream, their neon jackets clashing with the muted dawn. You dunk the last batch deeper, hiding evidence of the wool's brief transformation. A 1920s Parisian designer tried bottling alpenglow pink. The venture failed once buyers realized it only lasted 12 minutes. The marmot reappears, time-free and sulking, where yesterday's boulder meets new sunlight. Its nose twitches at your boots, probably detecting the mutton jerky hidden in your pocket. Bavarian shepherds used marmot fat to waterproof wool cloaks, a practice abandoned once townsfolk complained about the smell. You toss a scrap uphill, distracting the critic from your imperfectly aligned rinsing baskets. Color drains from the wool completely, resigning itself to propriety. You lift the final sodden mass, arms trembling, as droplets sketch ephemeral constellations on the stream. Mongolian herders believed dawn-washed fleece could capture fragments of vanishing stars, threading night's secrets into daytime tapestry. What's left in your grasp feels heavier than that poetry. Clouds erode the sunrise, pink dissolving into workday gray. A bee investigates the wool's bland expanse, buzzing away once it confirms the blossoms are fake. Someone really should tell the ducks about camo theory. You whisper thanks, not to any deity, but to the stubborn physics of light bending through ice crystals. The gratitude festers unclaimed, joining last week's curses against burrs and the inventor of lanolin. Tradition demands reverence. Your numb fingers suggest alternatives involving whiskey and mittens. The marmot retreats as your baskets fill, its morning shift ended. Fleece lies exhausted, yet renewed, paler than your hopes for dry socks by noon. Steam rises where sunlight finally hits soaked reeds, their faint hissing the closest you'll get to applause. You'll take it. Your palms cradle the first hank of stream-purged wool, its fibers humming with suspended moisture. Cold seeps through reed baskets as you arrange lengths along a sun-warmed boulder. 14th century Mongol horsemen spun while riding their drop spindles, chewing through miles and fleece in equal measure. You're pretty sure they didn't have to dodge marmot thieves eyeing their yarn. The spindle's whorl spins unevenly at first, a drunken moth caught in a lantern beam. Calluses snag on stray threads, each tug whispering warnings about haste. Your gray dance voice ghosts through the motion. Too tight, and you'll strangle the story loose. A Swiss monastery ledger from 1582 lists spun wool fines for irregular yarn 3 eggs, or a week's silence in the chapel. You take the silence. Lanolin lingers under your nails, nature's glue resisting the spindle's pull. Historians still argue whether industrial-era factory whistles copied the spindle's pitch, or if workers just hallucinated kinship. The debate feels irrelevant as your twist thickens, a coiled serpent of potential cloth. You find yourself apologizing to a snarl in the fibers. It glares back like a spoiled house cat. Mountain air stiffens the wool's remaining dampness, a blessing for the spinning, a curse for your joints. A redstart lands on the basket's edge, its tail flicking in time with the spindle. Medieval Persian spinners trained songbirds to guard their work. Finches pecked, snooping neighbors' hands. This one just wants your crust of rye bread. Twilight stains the wool's shadow indigo, stretching each strand into exaggerated caricatures of itself. You switch to backward draws, loosening tension to humor the fiber's moods. An obscure Pyrenees tradition claims midnight spinning summons moon moths to weave dreams into thread. Given your sleep schedule lately, you'll risk it. The spindle gains momentum, its hum now a hive-minded drone. One basket empties as the other fills, a seesaw of raw and refined. Each revolution smooths the wool's Alpine roughness, subdued but not erased. A French revolutionary's diary complains about covert messages spun into royalist lace, every loop a treasonous apostrophe. Your own twists hide nothing but yesterday's hurry. Pebbles shift underfoot as you twist, angling toward the last patches of evening sun. Borax deposits in the rock face tinge the wool with invisible minerals. Future dyers will thank these accidental mordants. Romany weavers once paid border guards with sunstruck yarn, illusions of gold spun into common thread. The trick worked until someone tried spending it. Your thumb finds a slub, thick as a mayfly's body, and twice as stubborn. You ease the spindle's hunger, letting the imperfections spiral into the core. Perfection makes for boring tapestries and shorter tempers. A Norwegian folktale warns of spinners cursed to unravel their lives, strand by strand, all because they mocked a troll's uneven plied yarn. Moonrise silvers the growing skein, its surface alive with phantom highlights. You count rotations by the owl's intermittent hoots, 273 before the first cramp bites. Bavarian children's rhymes equate spindle speed with marriage prospects, a dire prospect for your current snail's pace. The final length, phrase, slightly, endings, always rebel against neatness. You tie the loop with practiced resentment. Knots are just failures of continuity. A Tudor widow's will left 40 spinning wheels to her rivals, hoping they'd twist themselves to death in debt. You snap the thread clean, no spite, just fatigue. Dawn finds your baskets transformed, raw fleece become plump skeins glistening with unreleased stories. They'll wait for the loom's ribs, patient as folded prayers. Jurassic-era lichen stains streak one Hank Green times graffiti on your pristine work. Paleontologists found similar fibers in Urtsy, the Iceman's toolkit. His spinning secrets frozen harder than vendettas. You blow pulp from the spindle's hook, wooden grooves worn deeper than the stream's oldest eddy. Tomorrow's weaver will inherit these rhythms, the push, the pull, the necessary failures. For now, you let the wool dream in its coiled silence. Bird song and spindle hum fade into the same indifferent wind. Your palms flatten against rock, still damp from yesterday's labor. Cold seeps through skin to bone like a borrowed memory. Ghosts of lanolin streak the stone greasy silhouettes, where countless hands braced against the stream's tireless push. You press harder your own grip, aligning with a sun-bleached print smaller than yours. 19th century mill workers washed wool in arsenic-laced rivers, their fingertips blackening as fibers whitened. At least your stains rinse clear. A minnow nips your submerged wrist, its curiosity sharper than the water's bite. You blink, and daydreams blur with history. Maybe the small-handed laborer sneaked sweets wrapped in sheepskin. Maybe she sang off-key hymns to outpace shivers. Archaeologists found sheep knuckles carved with lovers' initials in a Scottish burn, gambling dice, or devotion tokens. The current offers no receipts. Fist-sized depressions pockmark the rock face upstream, centuries of knuckles grinding against stubborn stains. You test one hollow, your hand slides in like a key, finding its lock. Historians still argue whether these were work aids or devotional gestures to water spirits. Either way, your elbow pops in sympathy. Shadows pool where generations knelt, their outlines overlapping like tree rings. You trace a palm print warped by quartz veins, its lifeline split by geology's slow smirk. Local lore claims full moons resurrect the best washer's hands, spectral fingers wringing phantom fleece. So far, you've only seen raccoons pilfering soggy crusts. Your thumbnail digs at a rust-colored streak, iron deposits, or ancient blood. Either way, it outlasted whoever left it. A Hessian mercenary's diary describes washing plundered wool in Bavarian streams, frostbite claiming 2 toes pee Chinese letter season. You wriggle yours inside waterproof boots, grateful for mundane modern heresies. 3 dips later, your reflection wavers beside a stranger's. Ripples stretch your face into a long-dead washer's scowl, sunken eyes, judging your rookie technique. You stick out your tongue. The gesture disintegrates in the current. An Inuit elder once told you stream reflections capture the dead mid-chore, their eternal punishment for poorly carded yarn. You make peace signs just in case. The rock's edge bites your knee through soaked trousers, a pain precise as tailored regret. You shift and uncover a cluster of thumbprints, fossilized in silica, someone's bad day made permanent. Ottoman wool taxes required stamped fleeces. Inspectors pressed wax seals straight onto wet rock. Fraud involved chisels and plausible deniability. Dusk turns stones slippery. With illusion, every shuffle risks a baptism. You brace against a handprint wider than your face. His calluses must have been geological formations. Rumors whisper of Roman magistrates drowning inefficient washers in these pools, their spirits cursed to untangle knotted fleece. Your pace quickens, productivity as armor. Finger grooves on the bank's slope tell the real story, men and women hauling themselves up. Baskets heavy with sodden wool. You mimic their diagonal scramble, your boots failing to grip where their bare toes dug trenches. A Viennese laundress's will left her stream-cursed knees to science. The skeleton's patellae still display gouges from Alpine rocks. Moonlight resurrects the day's heat in stone. Your palms sizzle against warm granite as you ring the final hank. Words surface in the steam names or prayers worn smooth by repetition. Medieval French washer marks auctioneer's manifesto. Monasteries paid extra for stone-kissed wool deemed holy by proxy. Carbon dating just calls it dirt. The last rinse leaves your hands raw pink as the dawn salmon fighting upstream. You press them against the coolest rock, pores, drinking mineral traces from long vanished fingertips. A Cherokee story warns that washers' palms eventually fuse to stone, doomed to filter sediments till mountains erode. You flex your fingers, testing for graft. Drying wool drapes over bushes like weary phantoms, their damp hems brushing your neck as you pass. One scrap clings, a frozen sigh against your collar. You let it stay, company for the walk home. Byzantine emperors wore shrouds washed in saint-touched streams, itchy power plays disguised as piety. Stone by stone, the stream rewrites your hand's story. Blisters bloom where calluses should. Nails chip plotting rebellion. Tomorrow you'll add fresh prints to the chronicle. Future washers might curse your shaky grip or raise a tin cup to your persistence. Either way, the rock remembers. The tin cup trembles in its stone cradle, steam curling into the crisp air like a question mark. You pluck mint leaves from cracked boot soles, their menthol sting cutting through wool's earthy musk. A stray lock of fleece drifts downstream, barely shadow now, barely worth chasing. 19th century mill workers secretly brewed pine needle tea, their stolen sips staining teeth amber with resin. You prefer your contraband milder. Rust spots bloom through the cup's tin, a constellation map of past neglect. 3 ants paddle through the overflow, their frantic legs writing sonnets in surface tension. You rescue them with a twig, altruism, or fear of protein-flavored tea. A 1920s Alpine herder's journal recommends steeping gnats for stamina, his cursive cramped with dubious enthusiasm. You blow floating specks aside, just in case. Glasses fog as you sip. The world softens at the edges like wool in first rinse. Through the haze, a trout glides by, its dorsal fin slicing the current like a periscope. Historians still argue whether Victorian wash breaks included actual tea or just willow bark masquerading as Earl Grey. Your pinky stays resolutely unraised. The submerged kettle hisses against hot stones, its borrowed heat borrowed from last night's bonfire. Your toes flex inside damp socks, sourdough starter squelching with every shift. Mongolian herders once fermented tea in lead-lined pouches, ending debates about flavor with mercury poisoning. You gag politely, then swallow anyway. Daylight slants through the cup's dented rim, projecting a wavering coin of light onto your wrist. You spin it slowly, watch time twist into a liquid hourglass. A 14th century nun's ledger lists 47 sins confessed mid-rinse, including lust for the blacksmith's wool-warming bricks. Your flask of store-bought whiskey stays buried, temptation's shape streamlined by modernity. Mint residue coats your molars, green grit grinding with every jaw shift. You spit upstream, an offering to the brooks, UNSEEN Chinese letter. Local teens whisper that night washes imprint faces in tea steam, their grandmother's frowns judging wasted effort. Your breath unravels the illusion, one lazy exhalation at a time. The cup cools faster than expected, shadows swallowing its warmth whole. You upturn it on a flat rock, leaves forming a sodden Rorschach blot. Barn swallows swoop for the soggy bounty, their bellies distended with mistaken luxuries. An Edwardian anthropologist claimed Alpine washers channeled runes through tea dregs, his magnum opus drowned in a butter churn mishap. You prod the mess. It looks suspiciously like a sheep's rump. Water striders skate across the abandoned kettle, their spindly legs composing haiku on the meniscus. You count 17 ripples before the pattern dissolves, 69 short of last week's record. A Bavarian clockmaker's tombstone bears carved tea leaves, their arrangement supposedly encoding his final confession. Your own epitaph would just read needed a longer break. Cold seeps back into joints, a creeping reminder of unfinished batches downstream. You rise stiffly, pebbles cascading from your lap like fleeing thoughts. The last sip left a single leaf plastered to your tongue, bitter punctuation to this stolen interlude. Crusaders allegedly carried mint seeds to sweeten Saracen streams. Their gardens still sprout near ruined forts. You tuck a sprig behind your ear, temporary armor against afternoon's looming chores. Dregs evaporate. Ghostly tannin rings mark the rock's memory of respite. Your reflection wavers as you step back into the flow, ripples distorting yesterday's blisters into tomorrow's calluses. The trout resurfaces downstream its mouth, a perfect O of feigned surprise. You toasted avec Urine because sometimes ceremony needs no cup. Shadows stretch their legs across the bank, lengthening toward home like wet wool on a line. The mint's aftertaste lingers, sharp and green enough to almost feel virtuous. A forgotten strand clings to your sleeve, its kinked fibers whispering of interrupted journeys. You let it ride, companion to both labor and pause. Tea time ends, as all things must, with rough hands and colder water. The kettle waits upside down on its altar of stones. Next shift's problem. Somewhere upstream, a leaf spirals toward distant mills, its voyage uninterrupted by human thirst. You inhale the lingering steam anyway, savoring how temporary warmth fakes permanence. Fingers prune skin puckered like pages left in the rain. You flex them slowly, testing their resolve. Medieval illuminators painted washed hands clasped in prayer, crevices glowing gold leaf pure. Yours just itch. The ants march homeward, single file and unimpressed. Knee-deep again, you pretend not to miss the cup's dented curve against your palm. Currents braid around your ankles, rehearsing patterns they'll unravel before dusk. A ladybug lands on the kettle's spout, its spots precisely 7 in number. You grant it temporary ownership, monarch of hollow things. Ritual resumes, the Nautilus kind. Wool submerges with grudging slowness, waterlogged protests muffled by routine. Somewhere beyond the pines, a donkey brays, a sound like a rusty kettle demanding service. You hum through closed lips, replicating steam's vanished song. The brook records none of this, its ledger written in pebbles and light. You rinse until mint fades to memory, until your tongue forgets anything but grit. When shadows grow teeth, you'll retrieve the cup. For now, let it tarnish in peace. Raw fleece prickles your neck, its barbs drilling through sweat-damp skin. You arch backward, a human bowstring tensed against nature's annoying embroidery. 19th century mill towns find workers for scratching their ledgers, showing payments in scabs and curses. Your fingernails hover, itching to rebel. Cold water numbs the impulse until a rogue fiber wriggles into your ear canal. You freeze, suddenly hosting wool's worst improv comedy act. A Basque folktale claims, combing angry wool summons storm clouds, their lightning targeting unclean hands. You glance skyward, horizon stubbornly blue despite your treasonous itch. Lanolin smears your collar, grease and salt forming a makeshift prison tattoo. You count heartbeats louder than usual, thump 7, thump 8, thump silence, when did I last blink? Historians still argue whether impatience ruined more textiles than moths, or just made better stories. Your tingling epidermis votes for option 3. Elder Jean's mantra loops in memory scratch the wool, and fate scratches back. You picture her knuckles, swollen decades into permanent hooks around invisible needles. A 1930s patent proposed sand-filled mittens for itch containment. Drawings show models resembling aggravated raccoons. Your palms press flat on wet stones, coolness leaching up through protesting tendons. The bundle bobs mockingly, still half clotted with burrs. You lift slower this time, arms cradling weight like condemned dynamite. 18th century French dyers used adder venom to mellow rough fibers, and occasionally their apprentices. Your tongue probes a chapped lip, wondering if poison ever tasted like raspberries. Shadows shift, noon sun now spotlighting every lazy fiber's misbehavior. You rotate the fleece, revealing a knot shaped like your least forgiving relative. Carpathian herders allegedly sent such snarls to ex-lovers, pre-stamped with bitter postal seals. The stream licks the tangle, no match for yesterday's pettiness. Muscles twitch, a blink away from reckless yanking. You exhale through nostrils, air whistling past the gatekeeper teeth. Tibetans believe impatient spinners birth yarn that walks off looms, haunting valleys as spectral scarves. Your kneecap throbs agreement, or maybe that's just arthritis. Water striders skate across the fleece, their leg tips denting wool like tiny acupuncture. You envy their detachment, 6 limbs and 0 problems. A Moldovan documentary insists alpaca saliva soothes fiber burn. Their research team quit after 40 spit-coated days. Your canteen offers lukewarm compromise, hydration as vague rebellion. The bundle unravels slightly, one lock loosening its grip on grudges. You seize the advantage, fingers moving with monkish restraint. Renaissance guilds debated if haste tainted cloth soles, their verdicts etched in burned samplers. Your progress feels theological, each straightened strand a quiet hallelujah. Sunlight glints on surfaced lanolin, gold puddles swirling with your reflections wince. You dip deeper, submerging wrists to mute the tremor. An Inuit elder's memoir describes weaving impatience into fishing nets so the salmon feel rushed. Your laugh startles a jay, its scold rhyming with your grandmother's. Twilight's first bite sharpens focus, the itch now background static. You ring methodically, waterfall percussion sinking with diminishing twinges. Victorians blamed hurry sickness on train schedules, never considering wool's role in mental collapse. Your spine unkinks one vertebra at a time, a slow victory march. The fleece hangs limp, exhausted, into compliance. You press it against a boulder, stone, absorbing final shivers of rebellion. Ottoman scribes wrote cleansing rituals on sheep shoulder blades, then buried them under full moons. Your rituals simpler, a grunt and decisive splash. Calluses throb their ache deeper than mere skin. You inspect palms, ridged maps of today's mutiny. A Kyoto study found 12 seconds. As the itch surrender threshold, you lasted 14. The stream applauds with bubble-filled vowels, or maybe that's your stomach, Fireflies blink above the bank, their Morse code irrelevant but charming. You stretch sideways, the phantom itch now just nostalgic prickling. A lone fiber clings to your elbow, persistence incarnate. Let it ride, souvenir of humanity versus biology's worst pun. Moonrise silvers the water, your reflection showing nothing but clean hands. The fleece drifts in its willow basket, passive-aggressive in newfound softness. One ant explores your abandoned boot, writing critiques in pheromone italics. You hum tunelessly the oldest victory song there is. Damp wool smell mingles with night-blooming catchfly, sweeter than it deserves. Your neck still tingles, ghost fingers playing the world's smallest banjo. Historians will never document this exact moment, and that's the best part. The stream flows on uncaring, unstoppable, already erasing proof of struggle. Tomorrow's impatience looms, a smudge on dawn's pale cheek. You rinse your face anyway, because some rituals outlast even itch. Damp palms scoop coarse salt from the goatskin pouch, your fistful of frost in midsummer heat. The circle forms upstream, crushed quartz glittering like a misplaced constellation. 4th century Byzantine dyers swore salt kept colors from bleeding arrogance. Their tapestries, outliving emperors by 7 centuries. You press granules into silt, each crunch, a tiny exorcism. Rose mallow petals swirl downstream, their blush threatening the wool's virginal whiteness. A Breton folktale claims unguarded dye-flower pollen rides trout to spawn mischief. Your salt barrier holds, pink tendrils recoiling as if scalded. Someone's laughing, maybe the ghost of a Renaissance dyer who screwed up saffron. Fingers trace the protective ring, its jagged edge defying the stream's logic. Cold numbs your knuckles first, always the knuckles. Historians still argue whether salt preserved textiles or just made tax collectors sneeze less. You lick a grain off your wrist, tastes like the ocean's 7th revenge. Shadows stretch your salted hieroglyphics, warping under afternoon light. A clump of woad leaves bobs toward the circle, nature's guerrilla dyer on a suicide mission. You flick water at it, improvised artillery. 19th century journals mention vegetable invasions, ruining whole batches, punctuated by inky tear stains. Nightshade berries roll past, their purple gleaming like muttered curses. You rebuild the barrier, salt mingling with mica flecks in the shallows. An Austrian alchemist once marketed lunar salt as anti-dye talismans. His customers' sheep turned indigo anyway. The current nibbles your defenses. 3 granules sacrificed to the mud gods. A kingfisher dives, its cerulean streak mocking all your precautions. You lob a pebble upstream, distraction tactics learned from babysitting nephews. Medieval ordinances required salt wards at dyehouse outflows, enforced by colorblind inspectors with rusty scissors. Your legs cramp kneeling too long in the rock choir. Mist rises, the stream exhaling ancient gossip. Your salt line blurs, crystalline geometry dissolving into the universal wet. A Maori weaver's memoir describes singing to salt to wake its stubborn spirit. You hum off-key, 3 notes from a toothpaste jingle. Fireflies emerge, their glow testing the wool's pallor like fussy buyers. One lands on your big toe, living jeweler's loop. 18th century Parisian laundresses added salt to wash basins and fistfights to Sunday sermons. You shoo the insect, its exit path tracing a drunken hexagon. The first stars prick through, Pleiades reflected in your shrinking salt arc. A frog plops into the circle, amphibian anarchist, breaching the perimeter. You resist the urge to salt season it, barely. Ottoman dye masters trained carp to eat stray petals, their scales bloated rainbows in palace fountains. Pine resin scent cuts through humidity, nature's own cleaning product. You sprinkle the last grains, pouch now limp as a slept-on thesis. Sardinian folklore warns unsalted wool absorbs liar's breath, its threads fraying under whispered falsehoods. Your elbows creak, withholding commentary. Moonlight bleaches everything wool, water, your misgivings. The barrier holds no rouge smuggled into snowy fibers. A Victorian scandal involved peony-dyed corsets, corrupting unblemished linens, 2 duels, and 1 bad sonnet. Your spine cracks, a punctuation mark cementing vigilance. Dew forms on the wool, each droplet magnifying salt's crystalline centuries. You wipe fogged glasses, the world softens into watercolor indecision. Archaeologists found salt-caked looms in Pompeii, still threaded with purple despite volcano tantrums. A minnow brushes your ankle, nonpartisan voter in the dye wars. Dawn's first sigh stirs the pines, your all-nighter about to face inspection. Salt's gone dissolved into the stream's indifferent bloodstream. The wool remains pale, blank page hungry for future verbs. You pluck a stray maple seed from its fringe green helicopter, grounded by morning stillness. Birds resume their seminars, robin lecturing wren on protein priorities. Your knees leave dents in the bank, temporary altars to stubbornness. A 1920s textile manual recommended singing sea shanties to salt, allegedly boosted mineral morale. You opt for silence, broken by a yawn wide enough to swallow principles. The sun proper arrives, judging your saltless defenses with solar harshness. Wool glows unharmed, its purity a quiet middle finger to chaos. You grin, lips tasting of perseverance and yesterday's garlic bread. The stream forgives nothing, but for now it blinks. Your palms rasp against wool's damp fringe, new blisters bubbling beneath yesterday's calluses. Dawn light carves ridges into your skin, topographic maps of devotion. 5th century Egyptian. Weavers prized hardened hands, hieroglyphs, show thumb calluses, painted gold during temple ceremonies. You flex, a blister bursts, stinging clarity sharper than the stream's coldest bend. Warm blood beads, where skin snapped, crimson merging with rust-colored silt. Medieval Flemish dyers believed calluses housed miniature guardian imps, hence their resistance to dye burns. You dunk your hand, water bites the wound, a lover's quarrel between flesh and element. Fingers emerge mottled, swollen knuckles mocking your wedding band's tightness. Historians still argue whether callus patterns indicated social rank in pre-Incan cultures. You trace the ridge below your index finger, raised hieroglyph, no academic bothers translating. Rotating logs downstream becomes a test. Splinters flirt with raw flesh. An 1890s Vienna quack sold callus tonics, promising to boost laundry efficiency. Bottles contained licorice and regret. You grab anyway, grip firmer than expected. Lanolin slick water softens fresh abrasions, nature's reluctant truce. Your pinky callus catches on a burr ancient Velcro snagging modern resolve. Renaissance treatises mention oiling calluses with goose fat. Your lunch-free stomach gurgles disapproval. Noon sun bakes your hand's landscape. Cracks become canyons. A bead of sweat rolls into torn skin. Salt's cheap acupuncture. Tibetan yak wool combs feature callus-shaped handles. Ergonomics born from lifetimes of split knuckles. Fingertips prune whorls magnified into alien cartography. You press thumb to wrist, measuring pulse through callus padding. Victorian factory inspectors graded child laborers' hands. Thick skin meant fewer beatings withheld. The stream redistributes pain, numbing some blisters, igniting others. A maple seed helicopters onto your palm, its papery wing snagged on dead skin. 17th century samurai bound swords with calloused silk weavers' bandages. Allegedly improved grip during seppuku. Peeling a curled skin flap feels indecent. Private evolution made visible. Your nails collect silt black crescents, mocking manicured ideal. Archaeologists debate Bronze Age blisters on loom weights, torture devices, or textile tools. Evening chill stiffens your hands, creaky hinges needing oil. You dunk them anyway, submerging pride with practicality. A 1930s Soviet poster glorified factory workers' calluses as socialist armor itchier than woolen long johns. Knuckles bleach bone white, water's cruel makeup erasing lifelines. A trout nudges your dissolving scab, fishy gossipmonger tasting regret. Edo period geishas hid hand calluses with rice paste, their secret silk spinning side gigs. Moonrise gilds your battered topography, cratered skin glowing lunar. You scratch wool fibers from a callus groove, textile archaeology in real time. Napoleonic soldiers rubbed gunpowder into hand cracks, a poor man's cauterization. Fingerprints blur, identity eroded by repetition. You press a leaf to raw flesh, chlorophyll bandage on nature's terms. Edwardian etiquette manuals condemned visible calluses at dinner tables. Rustic vulgarity overturned by soup spills. Midnight finds you picking wool from bloodied cracks, thieving fibers returned to the fold. Swiss yodelers allegedly used calluses to grip Alpine horns, your wheezy hum disproves the theory. Dew seeps into splits, liquid pins, heralding tomorrow's toil. You flex, calluses shift like tectonic plates, new peaks destined to drown. A firefly lands where skins split, living sutures stitching nothing. The first blister of dawn rises, perfect sphere mirrored in stream's surface. You pop it ceremonially, sacrificial vesicle offered to the workflow. Your hands will outlive you, leathery heirlooms, vanishing with your final breath. Your knees sink deeper into the stream's gravel bed, water's icy teeth gnawing through worn trousers. A polka-dotted frog surfaces beneath submerged wool, its bulbous eyes appraising your clumsy human efforts. You freeze, palms hovering mid-squeeze, as 3 more amphibians parkour across the fleece. Their sticky toes dislodge pine pitch better than any brush, nature's detail crew working for free. 17th century French laundresses allegedly trained frogs to pluck lint from lace, dubious claims preserved in moldering guild ledgers. You snort, startling a juvenile frog into a backstroke, its indignance palpable. The largest amphibian claims a burr-crusted spot, kicking like a dervish in miniature. Each thrashing limb scrubs wool threadbare, demonstrating evolution's perfect washboard. Historians still argue whether Mongolian nomads employed yaks to trample clean their felts, or just enjoyed the spectacle. You mimic the frog's double-footed stomp, water sloshing over boot tops. A peeper retaliates by jetting silt into your sleeve cuff, cold, gritty revenge down to the elbow. Your grandmother's voice echoes, never argue with something that breathes through its skin. Sunlight reveals the truth. Frog-treated patches gleam whiter than your best efforts. You surrender a wool bundle to the current, letting tadpoles nibble loose fibers. Their snapping mouths recall Victorian seance gadgets, those creepy mechanical Ouija boards for rich widows. The alpha frog rides a twist of fleece downstream, fuzzy carnival ride ending at a eddy. It croaks, summoning reinforcements from beneath mossy stones. You count 17, no, 18 new volunteers swarming the workload. Their teamwork shames your solitude. One grips a pine needle, improvised back scratcher for fleece's itchiest crease. Another dives vertically, bullet-shaped body plunging through lanolin clouds. A 1920s Berlin zoo exhibited textile frogs until activists protested the bowler-hatted costumes. You stop pretending to work, elbows propped on river-smoothed granite. Shadows lengthen, frogs vanish as suddenly as they came, their departure marked by concentric ripples. Only a single toe print remains, ridged amphibian signature, pressed into damp wool. The stream hushes, daylight fading its critique of human inadequacy. You wring fleece with renewed deference, fingertips seeking frog-approved levels of crispness. Somewhere upstream, a tiny splash suggests approval, or maybe just careless insect hunting. Your hands drip quieter now, waterfalls roar reduced to apologetic trickles. You shake out the wool, watching debris swirl toward trout territory. Tomorrow's problem. Tonight, let the frogs believe they've trained you properly. Eddies coil beneath the wool's surface, smug little maelstroms pretending to cleanse while hiding grit. You brace against the current's lies, knees grinding into riverbed stones for better torque. 19th century mill workers strung glass beads through fabric to track rinsing efficiency, their clinking complaints drowned by water wheels. A strand of fleece ripples left, a false flag of surrender to cleanliness. You hook it back, calluses hooked from last spring's betrayal by this exact bend. The stream hisses through choked reeds, its excuse for laughter. Someone carved MAGNUS was here on a boulder upstream 12th century graffiti, or some hipster's prank. Sludge blooms beneath seemingly pristine threads, a subterranean mudslide caught mid-sneak. You plunge both arms deep, cracking the current's laminated facade. Cold shocks your molars, that special ache reserved for betrayal and freezer burn. Historians still argue whether Roman bathhouses recycled will rinse water, though we all know the answer. 3 quick dips mimic thoroughness, the liar's favorite shortcut. You count 7 full dungeons, instead, water fleeing the fleece like roaches from light. A submerged branch tugs your sleeve, nature's accomplice in this aquatic gaslighting. Your great aunt swore sheep could smell lazy washing, claimed they'd stampede murky streams in protest. Sun glints off deceptive ripples, optical illusions of purity. You squint until the truth surfaces, microscopic silt clinging like cowardly hitchhikers. Woad-stained water from upstream belies its pristine claims. Benjamin Franklin experimented with similar dyes to map ocean currents. Twist, lift, inspect, repeat. The routine becomes incantation against watery falsehoods. A shredded oak leaf clings to wool's underbelly, vegetable stowaway, seeking cleaner pastures. You flick it shoreward, it sticks to your ankle instead. Karma's petty like that. Cloud reflections writhe across the surface, distracting patterns meant to steal focus. You hum chromatic scales, an 18th century miller's trick to maintain rinsing, rhythm through distractions. The stream retaliates by tangling your hair, droplets slithering down your collar. Midnight rinsers whisper of Nixie's reshaping currents despite the overconfident. You doubt this, but still toss a rusted button as tribute. It sinks slowly, winking copper, swallowing light. 3 heartbeats pass before the fleece stays transparent post-squeeze. Progress. Your left boot becomes an accidental silt repository, cold ooze squelching between toes. Czech folklore claims river spiders weave truth webs to mark honest currents. You've yet to see one. Rotate the wool. Check for shadow clusters, grit's telltale fingerprints. The stream's melody shifts, false notes of completion woven through its babble. You dunk the fleece upside down, surprising hidden debris into fleeing. A pebble dislodges from deep within its shale layers, recounting epics of deception. Moonrise brings colder cunning, water's tricks refined by lunar approval. You switch to eagle prey focus, scanning for sediment's faintest shiver. A mossy rock becomes makeshift washboard, its ridges bullying dirt from stubborn fibers. Dawn arrives, pink light, exposing every evasion attempt. The fleece finally sighs surrender water sliding off its surface in unbroken sheets. You ring with vindication, drops falling straight as plumb lines. Somewhere downstream, the lyre's current mutters new plots against tomorrow. Dried wool crackles with static as you drape it across birch slats, each fiber sparking like a tiny rebellion against gravity. The empty racks creak louder now, their wooden mouths begging for moon-washed offerings. 13th century Baltic looms demanded precise humidity levels. Workers brewed nettle tea to soften air in weaving chambers. Your first hank catches dawn light, still damp enough to droop like a sighing ghost. The rack groans beneath its weight, an opera singer hitting that one impossible note. You pat the wood's splintered cheek. They've earned their theatrics after 2 centuries of service. A ladybug marches across your wrist, red armor glinting, before dive bombing into the fleece below. Moonwater drips from wool in metronome rhythm, plink plink, into puddles, mapping yesterday's deception. You reposition a stubborn clump, its fibers clinging like toddlers to a security blanket. Someone carved Nordic runes on the racks, underside weather prophecies or a love poem. The wood keeps its secrets beneath lichen tattoos. Sunrise warms your nape as racks slowly fill, their hunched forms transforming into woolen monoliths. 17th century Geneva weavers buried flawed yarn beneath church altars, begging saints for better tension. You whisper no prayers, just count gaps between drips like Morse code. Hanks shift in the breeze, dancing some half-remembered jig from when they grazed Alpine slopes. You catch a whiff of distant thunderstorms, ozone threading through lanolin's earthy musk. A strand tickles your elbow, playful reminder that not all moisture's been banished. Historians still argue whether ancient linen outweighed wool in Mediterranean textile trade, ledgers burned, tempers flaring. Noon turns racks into solar panels, soaking heat until wool exhales last vaporous sighs. You test a corner dry as papyrus, but softer than a banker's conscience. The ladybug resurfaces, wings furled, redeploying to inspect your left bootlace. Shadows stretch when you peel the first hank free, its fibers sighing at separation from warm wood. The rack protests with a splinter-tiny vengeance for emptied arms. 18th century dyers used crushed murex shells as theft deterrents. Their stink lingered worse than guilt. Twilight brings the loom's hunger, that creak of anticipation from the weaving shed uphill. You carry baskets of resurrected wool, fleece, reborn in stream and sunlight. Someone tied blue yarn around the shed's doorframe last autumn, warding against moth invasions or inviting them. Inside, heddles click like restless teeth, threads thrumming with potential energy. You load the first hank, hands remembering great-grandmother's grip on the same smooth shuttle. Mayan weavers once harnessed jewel beetles to polish thread, six-legged divas demanding flower offerings. The warp tension tightens, a spider's web stretched to symphonic precision. Moonlight slants through gaps in the thatch, silver stripes on wool soon to become someone's winter cloak. Your breath steadies as the treadle dips, peddling memories into fabric. The loom's thirst finally quenched for now. Dawn paints the stream's bends copper as you retrace wool's metamorphosis, each curve a chapter in Lanolin's vanishing act. Your boots sink into banks memorized by touch, mud shifts, but the landmarks hold fast. Roman fullers used mineral-rich streams like this for bleaching togas, their secret. Volcanic bedrock leaching sulfur into the current. First bend, turbulence, where wool shed its first grime. You skim fingers across churned pebbles, still warm from yesterday's friction. A trout glides past, its scales mimicking the fleece's original gray-brown camouflage. 19th century Alpine shepherds swore whiskey degreased, wool better than water. Their secret ledgers reeked of rye and regret. Second curve cradles the rock where you scraped off burrs. Claw marks from your tools stripe the stone, a graffiti of necessity. Lichen grows thick here, its rubbery texture imitating freshly washed fleece. Historians still argue whether medieval millstones, spiral carvings warded off demons, or just looked pretty. Archaeologists find more broken teeth than answers. Mid-morning sun highlights the third bend's deception. Glass-smooth surface hiding undertows that stole 3 combs last spring. You kneel where water whispered truth to wool fingertips reading pebbles like braille receipts from nature's laundromat. That poplar root, perfect for anchoring skeins during monsoon swells, its gnarls cradle fiber like a grandmother's knuckles. 4 dragonflies patrol the fourth meander, their buzzsaw wings keeping time with your scrubbing rhythm. You spot a strand caught on willow bark, 6 months, weathered into a ghostly pennant. Renaissance dyers would have killed for this chromatic decay, sun-bleached white, holding whispers of meadow yellow. Fifth bend stinks of iron groundwater seeping, rust into the stream. Wool emerged here tinted ochre until you learned to soak upstream. A mossy boulder sports your knife scars, test cuts from when mistrust of mineral stains ran deep. 18th century masons added walnut husks to counter rust tones, their aprons forever blotched with guilty brown. 6th curve holds winter's memory, ice-split rocks cradling while you washed beneath northern lights. Your breath still hangs here on brutal mornings, frozen halos marking where patience outlasted frost. Someone wedged a horseshoe into the bank, rusty curve, proclaiming luck beats thermodynamics every time. Noon finds you at the 7th bend, the liar's crook, where eddies pretend to rinse while hoarding silt. You lift a sopping hank, water streams transparent, but your fingers know better. 3 more dunks, minimum, before lanolin stops clinging like a jealous lover. A frog plops into the action, its splash pattern duplicating the exact stain you're fighting. Eighth bends gravel crunches with quartz teeth, nature's pumice stone for final buffing. Finished wool glows here, fibers frayed just enough to hug future dyes. You stash a smoothed pebble in your pocket, unofficial currency among stream whisperers. Victorian mill inspectors paid bonuses for quartz bright batches. Workers, ironically, went blind, spotting the difference. Ninth curve crouches under alder shade, the chill zone where wool stiffens before dripping dry. Your toes go numb here daily, sacrifice for the crispness weavers call Alpine snap. A spider claims this bend after sundown, spinning silk audacious, enough to challenge your wool's supremacy. Tenth meander sprawls where the stream widens, its languid flow the final judge of cleanliness. You release a test tuft, it floats without sucking bubbles, purged of deception. Catapult stones line this bank, remnants of last summers, who can soak a shepherd farthest tournament. 11th bend hides the secret, a spring seeping through cobalt clay. Wool dipped here emerges, tinged blue. Accidental genius, your great aunt, called sky's discount dye. You rinse your face in the cold trickle, eyelids flashing with indigo afterimages only you can see. 12th curve remembers the flood, reshaped banks, now cradling your newly built washing shelf. Splintered planks from the old shed form its base, a phoenix act even the crows respect. Bronze Age launderers built similar platforms, their post holes still studding Swiss lake beds like Swiss cheese. 13th bend stuns with noon glare water mirrors. The wool hall windows you'll restock by dusk. Squinting, you nearly miss the otter, its wet fur echoing the fleece's ideal sheen. A dropped mussel shell winks from the shallows, prism fracture, making rainbows dare each other to dance. 14th meander marks the fork, left channel for scouring, right for rinsing. You pause at the crossroads where wool splits its destiny. A cairn balances here, 3 slate shards stacked by who knows, pointing nowhere useful. You add a 4th piece, rough quartz that catches light like a smuggled diamond. 15th bend cradles your lunch rock, flat enough for cheese, slanted enough to discourage ants. Crumbs attract a wren who trills your chewing rhythm back as song. This is where you realized wool holds echoes, 12 washes in, fibers humming with streams full biography. 16th curve smells of decay elk carcass, upstream, tainting last Tuesday's work. You nailed warning signs to birch trunks, red paint shouting skull zone in 3 languages. The wool from that day still bears a musky tang. Fashionable Parisians would pay double for such animalic terroir. 17th bend glitters with fool's gold pyrite flecks that thrilled you as an apprentice. Now you flick them aside, knowing they'll only dull the carding blades. A porcupine quill pierces the mud, its barbed tip perfect for untangling stubborn locks when tweezers fail. 18th meanders mud sucks your boot off weakly, a slurping kiss from the stream's naughtiest curve. You've started weighting socks with pebbles, tiny anchors against aquatic kleptomania. A rusted harmonica half buried here plays better when underwater. Its reedy gargle accompanies ducklings on their maiden voyage. 19th Bend is all sound, rapids composing dubstep remixes of your splash patterns. Shouted secrets die here, the water's too loud. The wool too busy absorbing bass notes. Your great-grandmother's journal mentioned courting a violinist at this spot, scribbled margin note. Love's easier when the stream drowns out his off-key humming. 20th curve runs silver with fish scales, sparkle tax paid by thrashing trout during spring spawn. You pocket a few iridescent flakes, emergency confetti, for when the wool haul tests your last nerve. Moonlight turns them to mercury, pulled from your cuff during midnight mending shifts. 21st Bend stings with nettles their acid green fury, defending a patch of indigo flowers. You collect seeds in a dented tin future experiments in accidental dye. A hornet's paper palace sways overhead. You wash quicker here, respecting borders drawn in venom. 22nd Meander is where confidence drowns. Your first apprentice project floated away here during the 8 floods. A single spindle whorl wedges between rocks, its carved ram's head still judging your teaching skills. You toss a blueberry into the current annual apology. The stream accepts with a gleeful gulp. 23rd Bend numbs your hands completely, a baptism of cold that erases all but wool's truth. Blood flow returns in painful pricks, needles sewing your nerves back into working order. Icicles dangle from the holly here, nature's own felting needles, reserved for masochistic spinners. 24th curve births the best mistake. Your dropped shears, now home to crayfish royalty. Their clawed procession parades each dusk, silver blades polished brighter than any tool in use. You leave crumbs of stale bread, courtly tribute for keeping shears sharper than your wits. Final Bend arrives as the sun does molten gold pouring through pines to gild the wool hall's threshold. You heave the last basket onto dew-damp grass, its contents still humming the stream's meandering melody. Footprints trail behind, muddy hieroglyphs only next shift's workers will bother to decipher. Twilight dies, the wool hall's worktable vermilion, as you coax damp skeins into spiraled hanks, each twist a waterlog's final confession. Blood amber wool slithers through your palms, still thrumming with the stream's gossip. Vikings stored whetstones in their wool bales. The lanolin kept blades sharp through North Sea winters. You hum their sea shanties while winding, fiber rhythms syncing with imagined oar strokes. A hank resists its core, clutching a pebble smuggled from Bend 9. You extract the stowaway, quartz glinting like a smuggled diamond in firelight. 17th century spinners swore full moon twists held magic, their almanacs scribbled with lunar washing schedules, skeins from cloudy nights allegedly unraveled during funerals. A superstition your apprentice still half believes. Your thumb finds a knot forged in the lyre's current, its stubborn core, proof the brook hoards secrets. Steam rises as you press the twist to your cheek, moisture resurrecting the iron tang from sixth bend's rust-stained baptism. Historians still argue whether Celtic spiral patterns warded off evil or just trapped lint, moth-eaten tapestries offer no verdict. Midnight crusts the windows when the last skein surrenders its loops, hanging like cursive frozen midword. You pluck a strand. The snap echoes the poplar root's lament at bend 3. Renaissance painters used wool twist sketches as underpaintings, their Madonna's robes haunted by fleeces' ghostly contours. The final hank glows blue where cobalt clay kissed it, your great aunt's sky stain defying Dyer's guild regulations. Dawn finds your fingers tracing a hank's whorls, topography matching the stream's most merciless curve. Sore muscles protest, each ache a receipt from water's endless accounting. You stash the skeins in oak chests lined with moth-bane mint, leaving the wool hall steeped in June's ghostly humidity. Outside, the stream giggles at its stolen rhythms, now trapped in woolen knots. Boots squelch toward breakfast, your pockets heavy with quartz and unresolved questions. That stubborn pebble rolls against your thigh, silent, until next spring's unraveling. You kneel by the stream long after curfew, boots sinking into mud that crackles with tomorrow's frost. The northern lights ripple, chlorophyll green ghosts mirrored in water black as a loom's empty mouth. Vikings called these shimmers Valkyrie armor, said fallen warriors stitched their cloaks from its glow. Your chilled fingers unspool wool, each strand now a luminous thread in the sky's own tapestry. A brewery in Tromsø once sold ale, filtered through aurora-lit wool. Tourists swore it tasted like static electricity. You snort, wondering if today's batch would pair better with reindeer jerky or sheer desperation. The fleece floats pale as a nun's conscience, and twice as prone to chattering in the cold. Historians still argue whether 9th century weavers copied these swirls into their tapestries, or just had shaky hands. Ice glazes the rock where your knees press, nature's numbing agent for the 3 a.m. work shift. Stars smudge behind undulating light, as if the sky's playing jump rope with gravity. Your breath billows, a miniature aurora escaping with every exhalation as you plunge the wool's edge underwater. Something moves upstream, splashes resolving into a red fox paddling toward your basket. It sneezes at the wet wool, disapproval written in every waterlogged whisker. Medieval tanners believed fox piss set dyes faster. Your grateful tonight's visitor keeps its opinions dry. The current tugs, your grip tightens on wool now glowing like bottled moonlight. A soap bubble blooms from the fibers, its rainbow skin stretching to reflect the celestial dance above. Pop, it vanishes, taking with it 3 childhood memories of fireworks and a nagging grocery list. Your left foot's gone full martyr, pins and needles staging a revolution beneath the skin. You shift weight, stones roll like grumbling elders disturbed from their beds. A bullfrog croaks, its song merging with the slurp of wool through chilled hands. 19th century naturalists claimed frogs hibernated in wool bales, mistaking dyers' stains for amphibian skin. The lights pulse brighter, emerald waves bleeding into violet at the edges. You swear the wool's humming now, a subaudible vibration felt in molars and collarbones. One sleeve dips into the stream, and the cold licks up your arm like an overenthusiastic pup. Dawn's first blush creeps westward, pink smudges interrupting the light show with terrestrial impatience. You ring the final hank, liquid diamonds falling back to their homeland in the stream. The fox barks once, a hoarse verdict on your night's work, before vanishing into bluish shadows. Mist rises as you gather baskets, their contents shimmering faintly like captured storm clouds. The wool hall beckons, its chimney smoking despite the abandoned hearth. Your numb fingers brush a hank's edge, still thrumming with the secret language of electrified air. The wool hall's chimney smoke twists into the dawn, though no fires burned here since the last plague year. You drag baskets over frozen grass, moon-washed fleece whispering promises of sweaters unborn. Medieval Europeans once washed wool in fermented urine. Tonight's hall smells marginally better. A single speck of grit clings to your sleeve, final holdout of impurity. You flick it toward the stream, watch it vanish among ice shards. Historians still argue whether Saxon weavers left intentional dirt specks, claiming grit gave wool textured character. The breeze carries a threadbare laugh, maybe yours, as you imagine explaining that to buyers. Sparrows dive bomb the baskets. They've learned clean wool hides no breakfast grubs. Unpicking their nests next spring will be hell. But for now, let them peck. A Bavarian folktale claims sparrows stole the first dyed threads, stitching stolen rainbows into their eggs. You mutter thieves under your breath, half hoping they hear. The hall groans as you enter, floorboards warped by centuries of damp wool. No hearth smoke could fix that sour milk smell memory of 10,000 unwashed fleeces. Your numb hands arrange hanks on drying racks, each twist dripping perfect, syncopated rhythm. 17th century Dutch merchants timed auctions. By a water clock, your drips mark seconds till breakfast. Dawn stripes the wool through broken shutters, stripes of gold, stripes of dust, stripes of your left eyes twitching again. You press a palm against it, warmth battling the ice, still coiled in your veins. A fly emerges from nowhere, zigzags across the driest fleece like a drunk skater. Last winter's cobwebs drape the rafters, gray lace trembling as you pass. 3 drops hit your neck, ice water, or spider legends you'll never know. Someone carved a lopsided heart into the door jamb, 1863, judging by the florid numbers. Wool workers, graffiti, or star-crossed lovers. Either way, better craftsmanship than your pruning fingers. The final hank slaps onto its rack, a wet fish noise that startles a mouse. Its tiny claws skitter over an empty spindle, the sound of feigned innocence. You drop a thread strand as peace offering. Let future historians debate this act of rodent diplomacy. Outside, sunlight ruptures the mist. Your shadow stretches gaunt across frosted grass. The stream winks with trapped dirt specks, microscopic failures gloating in their escape. Your breath hitches, something primordial in watching soil return to soil while wool ascends. Cold seeps through your soles, a reminder that breakfast porridge awaits. The hall door creaks shut behind you, its rusted latch clicking like a satisfied tongue. Clean wool exhales through cracked walls, its damp breath almost warm against your spine. You touch one hank, drops summoning constellations on the dirt floor. Each bead holds the aurora's ghost, blue-green echoes of Valkyrie thread. The sparrows fall silent, momentarily awed by gravity's patient work. Fatigue hits like a burlap sack, eyes burning, knees souvenir stiff from streamside stones. You stumble toward the village, basket handles biting grooves into reddened palms. Halfway home, you realize your left boot's missing a buckle. Medieval cobblers would have tutted and charged you extra for dragonhide reinforcement. The last specks of dirt swirl downstream, tiny nomads seeking distant seas. Wool rises lighter than your shadow, its purity measured in absent grime. 3 elder women materialize at dawn, their shawls bristling with needles that catch the weak sunlight. You freeze mid-reach, basket handles digging fresh trenches into your palms. 17th century Flemish inspectors carried silver combs. These critics wield splintered utensils that have outlived 2 empires. One sniffs a hank, nostrils flaring like a hound, catching treason's scent. Lanolin's shy today. The tallest grumbles her thumbnail, splitting a strand like butter. Legend says Alpine washers once dueled with wet yarn, strangling rivals with improperly scoured fleece. You bite your tongue, better to endure scrutiny than mention that wool can't hold a noose. The second elder rubs fibers between thumb and gunmetal ring, leaving gray streaks on the wool. A village tale claims this ring contains a shepherd's tooth, lost defending flocks from a silk merchant's curse. Historians still argue whether medieval wool guilds enforced texture trials, binding inspectors' eyes to prevent visual bias. You resist asking if the tooth's owner failed such a test. Silence congeals as the third woman presses a hank to her cheek, close enough to kiss. Summer moths danced here, she announces, flicking an invisible speck. Your spine straightens, suddenly aware of every willow seed clinging to your hem. 19th century Parisian laundresses faced fines for lint. Their protests dyed the Seine blue with indigo vats. These judges wield sharper penalties. A pinhole of light pierces the hall's roof, spotlighting golden motes rising from your best batch. The tallest hums, a vibration that shakes dew from her shawl's fringes. Bavarian spinners once believed throat songs tightened yarn. This tune feels more like a verdict. Your knuckles whiten against the basket rim, the same way apprentice boys clutched dye vats during inspections. Threadbare at the core, the ringed one mutters, plucking a strand from your middle basket. Your stomach drops, remembering the storm-rinsed fleece that nearly swept downstream. Elders claim lightning-scoured wool remembers thunder. Maybe it unraveled itself in protest. You nod, playing penitent, while mentally calculating how many silent hours that batch stole. The cheek tester pockets a twist. Your silent scream tastes of iron and pine resin. Some say elder women collect tribute strands to build ghostly tapestries, recording every washer's shame and pride. The tallest snaps her shears, a sound that once halted wool futures at the Leipzig trade fair. Sun fully breaches the windows. The critics' shadows stretch into thorny patterns on the wall. They confer in hisses, a language older than the hall's warped beams. You focus on a splintered floorboard, your great-grandmother's initials carved near the mice hole. 34 years she washed here, her approval never earned. The ringed one breaks ranks, pitting her thumbprint into your palm. Callus grinds callus, a stonemason's handshake. It holds, she declares, urchin's smile, revealing a silver-capped tooth. The cheek tester slaps a hank against your chest, dampness blooming over your heartbeat. Their laughter shakes spider eggs from the rafters, tiny pearls exploding at your feet. The tallest mutters about youth rushing the frost rinse, but her eyes glitter like the Adriatic in your mother's postcards. They depart in a rustle of moth-eaten wool, leaving behind a single pine needle on your driest rack. Morning light gilds the approved batches, their fibers drinking warmth your hands can't absorb. You press the stolen twist's absence, phantom wool between your fingers. One winter, they rejected an entire season's work, sending a washer girl spiraling into the hemp trade. Today, your baskets stay full. The village bell tolls as you exit, 9 strikes for 9 flaws overlooked. Or maybe 9 blessings, an old argument among seasonal workers. You'll never ask. Behind the hall, 3 sets of footprints already fade their heel marks shaped like ancient comb teeth. Your shadow waves in the wind, thread thin and weaver straight, as you pocket the pine needle. A souvenir or warning makes no difference. It'll tuck nicely behind the portrait of Saint Blaise guarding your drying yard. Work lingers, but for now, the approved wool awaits. The pine needle pricks your thumb. Saint Blaise's portrait now wears its green slash like a jaunty feather. Approved wool breathes in tidy rows, each strand plumped with Alpine air. You trace a basket's edge, cedar ribs recalling ship hulls that once carried Flemish wool to frostbitten nobles. 19th century washerwomen swore moths avoided cedar chests, though yours still bear tiny nibble marks shaped like crescent moons. Dust motes swirl as you shift the first batch, hands moving through routines older than the hall's sagging roof. Rural French spinners allegedly whispered Latin hexes into skeins protection from envious neighbors. Your lips shape a grocery list instead. A tuft clings to your sleeve, stubborn as the goat who gifted it. You flick it toward the rafters. Let the spiders repurpose arrogance. Racks creak under wool's weight, their groans harmonizing with distant axe strokes from the valley. Historians still argue whether medieval knot charms in tapestries warded off evil, or just covered weavers' mistakes. Your fingers find a snarl, tie it tight, and call it devotion. 3 children scamper past the window, their laughter fraying the quiet like dropped scissors through silk. Twilight seeps through warped shutters. You light tallow candles while wool drinks the last daylight. Bavarian carters once believed night air softened fibers. Your hacking cough suggests they ignored lung health. A draft carries the stream's voice, its gurgle now entwined with rustling fleece. You hum the elder's verdict tune, watch shadows thicken into something resembling approval. Footsteps echo in the stairwell, clothiers arrive tomorrow, and rest won't find you twice. The pine needle glints from St. Blaise's grasp, a verdant smirk in flickering light. You exit backward, trailing fingertips across the doorframes, century-deep grooves. Outside, the first snowflakes settle on abandoned baskets, their crystals mirroring wool's newfound softness. Your shadow stretches toward home, threadbare yet intact. Somewhere downstream, the stolen twist floats, maybe snagging on a root like a forgotten secret. Dawn will demand more fleece, more frostbite, more silent bargains with saints. But tonight, ears ringing with water's memory, you let wool dreams pull the quilt over your head. The pine needle pricks your thumb. St. Blaise's portrait now wears its green slash like a jaunty feather. Approved wool breathes in tidy rows, each strand plumped with Alpine air. You trace a basket's edge, cedar ribs recalling ship hulls that once carried Flemish wool to frostbitten nobles. 19th century washerwomen swore moths avoided cedar chests, though yours still bear tiny nibble marks shaped like crescent moons. Dust motes swirl as you shift the first batch, hands moving through routines older than the hall's sagging roof. Rural French spinners allegedly murmured Latin hexes into skeins protection from envious neighbors. Your lips shape a grocery list instead. A tuft clings to your sleeve, stubborn as the goat who gifted it. You flick it toward the rafters. Let the spiders repurpose arrogance. Racks creak under wool's weight, their groans harmonizing with distant axe strokes from the valley. Experts debate whether medieval knot charms in tapestries warded off evil or just hid weavers' mistakes. Your fingers find a snarl, tie it tight, and call it devotion. 3 children scamper past the window, their laughter fraying the quiet like dropped scissors through silk. Twilight seeps through warped shutters. You light tallow candles while wool drinks the last daylight. Bavarian carters once believed night air softened fibers. Your rough cough suggests they ignored lung health. A draft carries the stream's voice, its gurgle now entwined with rustling fleece. You hum the elder's verdict tune, Watch shadows thicken into something resembling approval. Footsteps echo in the stairwell. Clothiers arrive tomorrow, and rest won't find you twice. The pine needle glints from St. Blaise's grasp, a green smirk in flickering light. You exit backward, trailing fingertips across the doorframe's century-deep grooves. Outside, the first snowflakes settle on abandoned baskets, their crystals mirroring wool's newfound softness. Your shadow stretches toward home, threadbare yet intact. Somewhere downstream, the stolen twist floats, maybe snagging on a root like a forgotten secret. Dawn will demand more fleece, more frostbite, more silent bargains with saints. But tonight, ears ringing with water's memory, you let wool dreams pull the quilt over your head. Its weight settles like a sigh, the Alpine stream still murmuring in your veins. Breath slows, shadows blur. Cold air gentles the edges of everything until even the snowflakes hush.